The following is a presentation of iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
Live tonight from the Daytona International Speedway, LSRTV, happy as always to say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the Superspeedway Cup Series Season 15 Championship right here on LSRTV, your home for sim racing and iRacing Live, as we work into the fifth race of this 2017 campaign. Happy to be topside with you as we are each and every Friday night. Myself, Evan Pasoko, Rachel White for topside with you, bringing you the call start to finish for 100 minutes of action tonight. And again, downstairs is the lovely and talented Cisco Scaramouche, Twisted and Tweaking and Isles, that are bringing us to you this evening. And as we return to the World Center of Racing, Rachel, different than it has been all season long to this point. And we're starting to get into the season, really. I can't use the excuse that it's early. We're into the fifth week of contest now. That's about a third of the way through this regular season. But it is the first trip out of 3 on this year to this Daytona circa 07. It may not look different from high above, but as soon as we drop the green flag, you will definitely be able to tell the difference between this and the current iteration of this 2.5 mile super speedway. This track is rough, it is treacherous, and we're packing them deep, just as many as we do week in and week out. 30 plus cars gonna do battle on what is a always very unpredictable racetrack.
Yeah, good evening, Evan. Well, it is time for the bumpy bump drafting tonight because it's Daytona 07, and this is the one that gets frisky. There is no safe race at this place. It is bumpy, it's narrow, it's tricky. It's not a triangle, but you know what? These guys will be bouncing off all sides, that's for damn sure tonight.
We come into tonight after 4 regular season races and 4 different drivers to take the win, and it automatically buys you a ticket to the Superspeedway playoff. Can't combine 2 words at once, it doesn't work that way. So Chris Pacini, Brandon Cruz-Monsivice, Brandon Chiburko, and Jason Altmans are the 4 drivers who have gone to victory lane so far this season. You see Altmans' name though in yellow? That's because he is not currently meeting the qualification standards for his win to count. He needs to remain inside of the top 30 in the championship standings. He is not currently fulfilling that requirement, and I believe that he is not going to be racing here tonight, so he's only going to go furthermore down that list. Now, plenty of time to be able to get back above that top 30 cut line, but as of now, we're showing Jason Altmans in that playoff grid, technically not qualified at the moment, and we'll keep you posted on that, where he runs as the season continues to go on. Then we talk about the names that auto points. How about Spencer Preet and Harry Tillett, the 2 names that really I want to talk about, Rachel? We see series veterans top to bottom, Watford, Holloway, Flag, Jurgensen, Rittenauer, Hedrick through the top 12. But the 2 drivers leading the point standings for non-winners this season, rookies to this championship.
There definitely are, and well, the rookies are doing a great job so far in this one, and it's been really exciting to see what those guys can manage, Evan, because as things stand, we have a real shake-up. Things have been very different for a while, and I'm really glad to see some of these guys further up there in the points and doing so well, especially the breakthrough British driver Harry Tillett, who's in a fantastic spot, looking like he's in a chase spot, and we'll see what he can do. It's almost the counterpoint to Brandon Chiburko from a different side of the pond, but a menace from another mother, shall we call him?
I think that's a fair analogy for sure, and as these drivers wrap up their single car qualifying session, we're going to get set to go racing once again tonight under this new format, as we've been talking about all season long, as we go stage and time racing tonight from the Daytona International Speedway. Stage number 1 going to be laps 1 through 50. At the end of 50 laps, the top 10 drivers on a racetrack get bonus points, 10 points for first, 9 for second, 8 for third, so on and so forth, until the driver who comes home in 10th position gets 1 bonus point, and then from that point on, we will count the clock down to the end. But this is a critical race later on this year. It's going to be not only the 4th to last race of the regular season as well as this one, but this racetrack, Daytona Circa 07, will be the opening race to the final round of the playoff, and that is going to be critical. Some drivers don't dislike this track as much as some others do, but you're going to have to come to terms with it one way or another if you want to have a shot at vying for a championship by the time December rolls around. So not to look too far ahead, let's get tonight's race underway as we go tracks on and take a look at your LSRTV starting grid for race number 5. Ron Flag going to start on pole position tonight. The Valvoline number 10 with a 48.438 qualifies at a pole position. Look at the time 2nd through 4th. Basilia 2nd, Jorgensen 3rd, and Andrew Berger at 4th, all with a 48.439. It means that the top 4 drivers really in the qualifying session separated by less than 1/1000th of a second. The only driver behind them starting P5, that'll be the inside of row 3, is Rodney Wofford.
Starting in the 6th place tonight on the outside of row number 3, Ray Renau the 2nd, with Daniel Osborne and Scott Warren in row number 4, Chris Bassini and Seth DeMerchant row number 5.
Paul Servant going to start a little bit uncharacteristically deep in the field from 11th position tonight. Tom Dryerland going to be on his outside in 12th. Josh Ball has returned to the Superspeedway Cup Series, is going to be in the unlucky number 13 starting position this evening. Ramon Evans going to accompany him on row 7. That'll be 14th spot for the driver of the 83, and just behind him, Dan Harrington will roll from 15th.
Outside of row number 8 is Harry Tiller in his first race here at Daytona 07 with the Superspeedway Cup Series. This will be a learning experience for him. Row number 9, Jared Haggerty and Gary Champion. Row number 10, Travis Brown and Brandon Cruz, Monster Vice, for your 2nd place point sitter.
21st is going to go to Daniel Holloway. Justin Levine is 22nd. Sean McCarrick is 23rd. Tanner Mann 24th. And Scott Fensterbacher is 25th.
26th place tonight is Dwayne Cooper with Mike Schultz, last of your qualifiers, in 27th place. Behind them, Victor Bartlett, Brandon Chaburko, Andy Kessler, Jimmy Coleman, Larry Camp, and Mike Thiel are your non-qualifiers up to 33rd place.
And that's a look top to bottom at your LSRTV starting grid. We talk about this Daytona International Speedway. Stats are going to be the same way they were 2 weeks ago, and it will look just as they do in 2 weeks' time. When we come back to the regular circuit, it is still a 2.5 mile D-shaped oval, if you will, often just referred to as the tri-oval or super speedway at this racetrack. Banking coming in at 31 degrees with about 3 stories of banking. The tri-oval also clocks in at about 18 degrees of banking. It does not count as a quarter, though, in its own right. And again, the biggest thing this season is the strategy in the opening stage of this race. 55% fuel cell puts these drivers on track to go about 21 to 23 laps. You would not be able to complete 50 laps in stage number 1 without caution on one pit stop. If you get a yellow anywhere 7 laps into this race, it would then open up that strategy to the realm of possibilities. But again, the big thing is you're going to see the clock at the top of your screen to begin to count down to the end of this race. We'll be talking laps for the first little bit here until we hand out stage points in about an hour or so, and then we'll really get set to count this thing down. But as always, we're happy that you're spending your evening with us at LSRTV and iRacing Live. Ron Fly going to be in control of the field in the number 10 Valvoline Grand Prix as the green flag flies and we go racing for the 5th race on this Season 15 Superspeedway Cup Series campaign.
Yeah, great start by the inside there. Flag at the inside line, doing what we expect from them. Not so good there for the number 94 on the outside, Frank Basilio the 3rd. Behind him, of course, Andrew Berger and the 87 of Ricknow the 2nd. Just dropping back, everyone's fallen away from them, pulled down to that low side already. So it's looking to be one of those quiet early days here at the Daytona 07. The 3 of Savant dropping back on the bottom. He doesn't want to be any part of this.
And as you watch these drivers head off to turn number 3, another familiar name back in the series, just for this race only, a 1 race deal for this season. The 94 of Frank Basilia back in a big dig at Ford. Not good to see Frank back in this series. It's been quite some time since we've been able to be seeing the Season 6 champion making his return here tonight. And he's going to give a push to Mark Jorgensen Jr. as the 88. After not leading lap number 1, that would went to pull Ciderod flag. Jorgensen jumps high side to get the run, and I think he'll have a good chance this time at a turn number 2 and going for the race lead.
Absolutely, and up front, Mark Jorgensen Jr. doing what he does best, pulling to the lead here with the 94 of Basili III, an expert at this old track. Jorgensen Jr. himself not going to be clear. He stays up high to stay with Frank there. Too early to really lose friendships in this stage of the race by just dropping down and dumping people, but he's no real urgency to be out front, in fact, as he's going to try and pull the 94 with him here as they go through the tri-oval. Not going to have enough of a run there, Evan, to get themselves clear by the first corner. They might be now, but it'll be very, very tight. He's not going to be there in time. But look at him, he just stays high. No real drama right now. In fact, the higher side is actually a little smoother than down on that yellow line.
You can really see the cars bouncing around everywhere, but I think the outside might be just a little bit better, because on the bottom, you can't move up or you're going to get into somebody. The drivers on the outside, I think, have a little bit more real estate to play with, so they're allowed to kind of walk the cars up and down a little bit more, when the guys at the bottom really have to jerk the wheel in the corner to keep it down on that yellow line. But the point that you were making is exactly right. Jorgensen was clear. He could have gone down at the bottom, did not. He's been waiting to try to bring the 94 with him, but it looks like Basilia not really interested in going with him. They were both clear that time, and instead of going to the inside, Jorgensen is going to drop down. Basilia goes to his outside, and he's going to put that Ford to the race lead, clear in the corner, thinking about stepping down. He's got the 24 of Berger to push him.
Certainly has, and Berger will be doing what he can here to try and push him clear, and both of them should be by this point, so we'll see them drop down likely in front of Junior, leaving Rick out a second, and a 57 car up top of Seth Merchant there, that mellow yellow livery. Behind them, the 48 car, Josh Ball, a newcomer to the series, and Dinner Osborne up there on the high side as well. Actually, no, Osborne down below. It's the 06 of Drailing up there on the high side. Only 4 cars, not really hooked up either. Not going to be good for momentum.
And the key, obviously, in this is the racing's going to be the same as it is at the regular version of this Daytona International Speedway. The car's just jumping off the asphalt in the setup of the corner. So you really got to give each other more space. It's still going to be pack racing. You see the drivers on the outside of the racetrack working to an advantage. Jorgensen going to go up to the outside, and then that will take away a little bit of the momentum off of the 94 and the 24, and they're going to try to make a run for this thing. But you need to space. I would recommend against pushing in the corners regardless off of the turns, but look at the 57 and the 87. When you get on somebody's bumper and these cars are bouncing around side to side, it is so very easy to tuck somebody around and turn them. So it's not that you can't pack race. You have to be very careful, though, when it comes to actually getting on somebody's bumper and pushing them.
Yeah, definitely. And look at this. Jorgensen Jr. up to the outside there, wanting to get back to the lead. Ahead of the 94 and 24 cars, and he's just got that help from Rick out a second as the outside seems to hook up. As soon as Jorgensen Jr. goes to a line, Evan, it just seems to be a little bit more consistent. And the Merchant's going to be a bit high there. Not going to have a chance to drop down in front of Frank. But in a good position here. We'll see whether they come back up to help him, but not looking like they will at the moment. Junior, he wants to try and get a good run here. He still needs, I believe, to get himself back into victory lane this season. It's not been a good one for him so far. He needs a win. It's been uncharacteristically quiet for the 88 as they go 3 wide here.
3 wide but a 57, squeezed up to the outside. That is set the Merchant. Not a lot of places to go. Real tight as Drierling. And the 06 Chevrolet going to go up in that middlemost lane. And a 57 is dropping backwards, and 3 wide's always sketchy at Daytona, but when you have the guys in the middle moving around like that, it's a little bit extra dicey. The 57 to Merchant will find a spotted line. He drops back at a 9th spot behind Piscini and in front of Wofford. Meanwhile, challenge for the race lead comes once more. Jorgensen outside. He'll beat the 87 Rittenauer to the line. Not going to clear him, so we'll go side by side for the point back to turn 1.
Yeah, they have indeed, and wow, the front is getting a little bit congested here, Evan. The low side really has fallen away here. We've got a majority at the high side. As I mentioned, that middle line is smoother than the bottom of the racetrack. So really the optimum location to run. This is almost the inverse, where we see the stronger line really forming up on that high side and less cars like we are seeing now down on the bottom. It's nice and easy to run it when there's only one car. It's the shortest run, but when you've got traffic, being up high actually gets you faster because you are having a smoother, easier ride.
And you always have the drivers on the inside of the racetrack constantly checking up a little bit as to not get into each other, and that's how that outside lane lends itself an opportunity to get those runs and challenge for the race lead on a very consistent basis. Bottom is the shortest way around the racetrack, but it is by no means the passing lane. Almost every single deliberate pass for the race lead you will see tonight is going to come from a driver going around the race leaders from that outside lane. And the 87, to give him credit, is not letting Jorgensen go by, and I think a lot of that is going back to the 94 to Basilia. All Rittenauer can do, hold that yellow line, and hope that the driver behind him is doing his job. And Basilia, a series veteran again with that one race deal, racing back here tonight. At 07, there's problems behind your race leaders, though. Couple of cars at turn number 4, Andy Kessler and Paul Servant.
Yeah, Servant who dropped back early on, actually, to try and get himself out of trouble. Well, he's found himself in trouble at this point. He was up in traffic. We're going to replay for you on the screen there. Running with the 26, but he dropped back to avoid getting into the 78, who seemed to slow down. But hit by the 26, and that just turned him down the track. Tries to stop himself going down, gets turned around by the 98, and all in all, a fairly minor crash, but 2 crumpled race cars.
Yeah, tough break for Andy Kessler. There was really nowhere he could go. The 3 was sideways in front of him, and at those speeds, you just can't go up and around or get down and below him because that wheel is almost full lock going into the corner when you are not lifting. And Paul Servant ends up okay. The car is torn up, and he'll definitely want to use the quick fix for that. Andy Kessler actually got the worst of it because he also ended up back into the outside fence. And that goes back to what I was just talking about, is at this racetrack, I would be very cautious to actually get on somebody's bumper. You don't need to be pushing somebody for the draft to work. Makes it a lot better, and it's the fastest way around, but it comes with the risks that you just saw there. And you get into somebody, slightest movement on the bumper, especially into the quarter on the left rear quarter panel, not normally a good combination, and that brings out a yellow for the first time tonight. It was a battle for 26th position. Race leaders going to come down pit road with 10 laps complete and 40 laps to go in stage number 1. This pit stop would get us inside of a 1 pit stop window to the end of the stage.
It certainly will, and I think people seem to not realise there's a couple of cars missing their pit boxes, including the 69 of Harry Tiller missed his box. A couple of things people seem to forget in this series, Evan, is that, well, you're actually faster when you're just running in line in one of those packs. You don't need to bump draft. There's next to no need to bump draft. In fact, bump drafting doesn't really work that well in these cars. Unless you are in smaller groups. When you're in a big group like that, just run in line. You are fast. You don't need to push, especially not at this stage of the race. So those guys were going a little too hard, I think, at this stage. And plus, you don't want to be doing it back there in 20+ places. It's just not necessary.
Basilia is going to win the race off of the pit lane. He decided to go with just fuel only. Next couple of cars off of the pit lane decided to go fuel as well, but they took on some tires. Left sides only for Rittenauer. I know at least right sides only for the 88 of Jorgensen, but the best way to draft around this racetrack is to get as close to that bumper as you can without actually touching, and that was a huge topic of conversation. What I find it crazy to say this now, but years ago on the sim, when we first transitioned over from the car of tomorrow, the COTs, over to these Gen 6 cars, is bumpers and from the front to the back of each car don't line up with each other. You can't really lay onto each other, and as I noted earlier, like I said, I would recommend against it in any context, but especially at Daytona 07, you have to be extra careful. And again, an avoidable incident, sure, for this early in the race, but we saw good things going on up front, and we're going to have a shuffle for the race lead courtesy of the pit stops because of that 94 only going to a fuel only. He's going to leapfrog in front of Rittenauer, and the light's already going to go back out on top of the pace car. So quick caution, going to get this one back underway. We'll double things up still with all 32 drivers who started this race being scored on the lead lap. So it's pretty good for a start of Daytona 07. We have definitely seen worse in the past.
Absolutely. In fact, it was a fairly minor league incident for Daytona at 7, so fingers crossed it will be the last. I doubt it very much, Evan, but as you mentioned, we are now heading towards the one-stop window now, or we're in the one-stop window, I should say, to the end of the stage. We'll have to come back in if we go into green, but it'll be about halfway through that run, so it's perfect timing for that to happen. The car's forming up too wide now, and it'll be Frank Basilia the third and Ray right now second on the front row, so it's the boys with numbers after 1-2 spot.
And just taking a look to see some of the other bigger movers. Seth the Merchant, tip of the cap to the 57. He made up most of these positions under green on that opening stint, but he did start 10th and he's worked his way up to second. Another big mover a little bit further back, Jared Haggerty in the number 6 Ford, started in 17th position, and he's made himself up 7 spots so far inside of the top 10. He's about the third biggest mover in this race, having gained that many positions in what's going to be just the opening 12 laps of this one. So as the pace car drops down and away, you see the clock at the top of your screen to continue to wind down. We are going to complete lap number 12 of 50 in stage number 1 here tonight from the Daytona International Speedway. The iRacing.com official pace car off and away, fielding the hands at an 94 of Frank Basilia. Been a while since I've been able to say that one, and an 94 McDonald's Ford is out in front.
And we're loving it right now because he's got a great start there on that run as we throw in some brutal sponsorship, but Seth the Merchant with a good push on that start really helped him out there, Evan. Basilia getting a good launch. Also Passini behind him as up will come to Merchant, betraying him early on, joining Ritter second and Junior as no, Basilia comes up to block that line, and we get a bit of a concertina on the outside, forming an early third line here. Well, that's a bit quick to get 3 lines going off a restart, but the odd man out who loses out here is the car of Rinner second. Basilia showing his veteran status, working those lines hard.
Yeah, and the 87's in a really tough spot because he's dropping back on the outside. He would like to find a spot in the middle. Thought he might have been able to squeeze in between the 7 and the 76. It was not the case. And now you see the 6 of Jared Haggerty, the 83 of Ramon Evans and company. That 87 Rittenauer is going to go from, ironically enough, leading this race at the moment of caution to running outside of the top 20 no more than 5 laps later.
Yeah, he has, and that's not been a good position for him to be in right now, as the Merchant challenging up front here for a run at the lead. Junior on his bumper there with the 48 of Ball, the 24 of Berger, and the 7 of Warford. Good grouping on the outside. We've seen the outside be fast, and they've certainly got the fast cars. Oh, a big swipe there by Tom Dreiling, who got a bit of a wobble on, I think, coming out of 4. That cost him as, oh, at the back, caution is out.
Couple of cars, Larry Camp, Mike Schultz, just to name a few of them. Yellow flag is back out for the second time tonight. We'll get a second look at this one on your LSRTV replay, and it may be the second incident tonight that has involved the 3 of Paul Servant. Was involved in the last accident, got down pit road, got some of the damage fixed, but did not take his quick repair. He was in a 3-wide battle for 26th position and made quite the, I mean, he was on the 3rd lane all the way through the quarter. I don't know if the 76 thought he was clear and got spooked, but the 76 of Schultz was in the middle of all of this, and quite honestly in a really peculiar position, and he pushes up, gets into Larry Camp, and they come back down, tag Servant, and it's then the 3 and the 76 who end up into the outside wall. Pretty hard bit of contact for those 2 cars. Larry Camp is also involved in this one as he spins down to the inside fence, and second incident on the night, both of which have occurred outside of the top 20.
Yeah, and weird places to have the cautions happening. Come on, guys, calm down. We're running right here at the back, and we're seeing 3-wide racing, but we're seeing bump draft, and these guys are running like they're in the top 5. And this is somewhat inverted. The guys at the front are being clean. It's the guys right at the back who just can't seem to wait.
And some of the drivers involved in that one just need to get to the pit lane now. They're not sure if they're going to be able to make it back around to the pit lane. I don't believe pit road was open that time. But it might have been because the pace car had just caught up to them, but It looks like it was, because I saw a couple of drivers from outside of the top 10 trickle down to the pit lane, but there were some drivers involved in the incident that just limped to pit road. If there's any place at Daytona, I know you would prefer to just not, but if there's a place at this racetrack in which you want to get into an incident in, it's turn number 4, because it is a pretty quick walk, or a coast if you have no engine left, back down to the pit lane. If an incident happens in turn 1 and you have to take a tow to pit road, you're talking about a 3 to 4 minute penalty that you're going to have to serve before you're allowed to service that race car. In turn 4, it's going to be closer to 40-45 seconds. So second incident on the night, not the biggest one either, 2 very small ones checking things up early.
Yeah, they are indeed, and well, we'll get this one back green as soon as we can. And well, this has not really helped us put us into a window, so I don't think people really pit here. Track position will matter more. You're still going to want to pit around 20 laps to go. You don't want to really break that window you're seeing in the moment, because until we get to the 22, 23 lap to go mark, you really can't make that final pit stop in the actual stage and expect to get to the end. It's a very different kind of racing we have now, Evan, that these guys know after lap 50 there will be a caution. It's a guaranteed marker point now, which has changed strategy in this first half of the race.
Right, because it is a timed race, but as we continue to describe laps for you and you don't see them, the drivers really aren't paying attention to that clock at this point either. It is basically 2 races within one. Objective 1, I think, for most of these drivers is to win the stage. Because there's only one stage, well, technically 2 stages if you want to count the end of stage 1 to the end of stage, but as it's most commonly referred to as, with 1 stage at the beginning of the race. Being as there's only one, there's not much benefit to trying to short pit around it at a plate track. The incentives that you would see at an intermediate or a short track just aren't there in this style of racing. So basically everybody goes out, races to lap 50, sees where they stand, and then they look at the clock and they get, okay, maybe we got 30, 35 more laps to go based on whatever time's left of the clock, and then they go race it from that point on. But I can honestly say that I don't think anybody's really been sandbagging these stages, aside from the drivers I think who would, Rachel, typically just kind of hang back and not want to get themselves involved in a side-by-side up inside of the top 10, top 15 until late. I think they're kind of ignoring the stages and just staying towards the back, those groups that'll drop 4 or 5 seconds off of the lead group to stay out of trouble. But for everybody racing up front, they have been going for those 10 bonus points. And again, into tonight, 4 races, 4 different winners. So 4 of the 12 names on the championship grid are filled up of drivers with wins. It doesn't matter how many drivers get wins this season, there is going to be at minimum 5 points paying positions. We could have 12 different race winners. The chase will be 17 drivers deep. So points are always going to be a factor, and these bonus points could prove critical.
Bonus points will always be a factor, and these guys have to pay attention to that. Laps led, stage wins. These things are all vitally important as we come out of turn number 4, Evan. Going back to the green flag.
And it's going to be the 88 of Mark Jorgensen Jr. in control. He's the driver who's looking to add his name to the list of race winners so far in season 15. American Ethanol green flag going to fly once more. 17 laps now complete in stage number 1, 33 to go. That time by the start-finish line. Pretty good jump for Donati for Basilia on the outside. It was not the greatest, so the inside going to pull the advantage in the center.
Yes, he did. The outside really a bit shaky right now. Josh Ball moving around quite a bit there as compared to what we would have wanted to have seen at that stage. Basilia up front, holding the line, but it does seem like the powerhouse is on the bottom with Jorgensen Jr., Persini, Berger, and also down there the 18 car of Gary Champion. The quiet one, but always around in these races. 76 as well, the 07 in there too. The big names have really dropped back here. We've seen this quite surprisingly, actually. Harry Tiller, a big name, but a new name, down in 21st. Rignad, second, 25th. Rod Flag, 24th. Brandon Chaburko, 28th. Montevise, 29th. This is really unusual.
And you can tell that just by the drivers who have worked their way up to the front, likes of Gary Champion, Tom Dryerly, and Scott Warren, Dwayne Cooper, names inside of the top 10 who may be looking at so far this season maybe one of their best opportunities to put themselves into a points-paying position come the end of a stage. And some of the main field markers who started up front got cut up in some of these caution flag cycles throughout. They haven't been in the accidents because the accidents have been happening towards the back of the pack, but a couple of them came in and topped off for the top 10 this last run. That obviously dropped them towards the back of the field. No tire advantage for those drivers, so it's not like they're just going to come flying out through the field. But they are going to drop back and maybe try to get a little bit extra fuel mileage out of this thing. See if maybe we'll go green to the end of the stage. That could be a factor. Let's look to the outside of the racetrack, though, as we come into turn number 2 and head down the Daytona super stretch. Here comes Basilia in a 94 Ford. He'll come up about a half a car length short of clearing for the race lead.
Yeah, indeed, and it's definitely getting quite exciting up front. Basilia the third there, pushing as hard as he can there with Ball. Big move by Jorgensen to try and block him, but he was overlapped. Basilia moves up to the third lane, but comes back down again to take that spot, and we're seeing a real... Oh, he's turned him! Problems! Big problems! Big crash, Evan.
They'll scatter, and still more drivers going to be involved as they spin off to quarter number 1. Caution flag will fly. And the times of talking about incidents happening outside of the top 20 have now passed. Contact started up at the front of the field. We were looking at it live, and it will take a second look. But the LSRTV replay, the 48 got onto the left rear quarter panel of the 94, and I told you pushing, not a good idea, especially in a corner. And sure, well, the tri-oval doesn't show up with a number on the track map. It is 18 degrees of banking at a turn in and all of itself, and that slightest bit of contact. Basilia gets out of shape. He hip checks the 1. The 48 comes down on the 24, and they all go spinning off to the inside. The big issues were with the 94 of Basilia, who ended up coming back up onto the racetrack, and so did the 48 of Josh Ball after he got hit by a driver who dove low to avoid it. That knocked him back up in front of traffic, and what started as 3 drivers spinning away from the racing surface ended up with a 48 on his lid coming back up above the double yellow.
Yeah, that was a crazy one for us to have, and that's quite a big incident, but this puts us, if you are brave, in a very interesting position, because it could be, or no, it's too far by about 4 or 5 laps, which is unfortunate, but it's one of those positions right now, Evan, where that wasn't necessary, but at the same time they were pushing to try and make time, and Ball, new to the series, new to this track in this series, and one of those incidents that goes wrong, but it fans out and then everyone came back up onto the track, and that was just carnage.
So as the field cycles back around to catch up to the pace car, let's take this quick opportunity to step aside. We'll keep it LSRTV non-stop so you don't miss a moment of the action. Under our third caution, the night is still young from the Daytona International Speedway. You're watching LSRTV's continuing coverage of the Superspeedway Cup Series on iRacing Live.
I actually raced at Speed Weeks in 2015 for my first time, and before then I was racing a super late model on iRacing at New Smyrna, which is where Speed Weeks takes place. You know, I made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laps there, done a bunch of races, and I went down there for the first time in my real car, and I was rolling down pit road, and it felt like I had been there before. My first time on the racetrack, I think I was first or second quick. I was actually racing an indoor kart track, and a guy by the name of Bobby Waltrip, Michael and Daryl's brother, commentates that race down there. Long story short, he saw me, saw my talent, put me in a late model, and he says, you know, you're only gonna get about maybe 20 races throughout the year, and he told me about iRacing and be a good way to try and get seat time outside of the race car. So I looked it up, and sure enough, it was cool, and I was hooked from the beginning for sure. I use it as a really, really good tool to visualize racetracks, coming in and out of pit road, being consistent. You know, the thing about iRacing is I just use a laptop on a desk. And at the end of the day, you don't have that butt feel that you do in a real car. You have to see the car get loose before you can feel it, because you can feel it. And I think that makes me better when I hop in a real car and I can feel it. Coming up through the ranks of iRacing, I wasn't always the best. I lost a bunch of races. I was a top 10 car, and pretty soon I was a top 5 car, and now I'm pretty much winning on a regular basis. So I think it correlates consistently to real life, because you do have guys on there that do it every day, and I think the level of competition is definitely correlates to the ladders you need to take in real life as well. Members come up to me all the time and they think it's just the coolest thing that iRacing's on the car, because it's something they enjoy and it's something that they can relate to. Obviously, I love having iRacing on my super late model and now my Xfinity car, just because it's been such a big part of my life and a big part of my career, and how I've gotten to this point, and to carry their colors up through my late model ranks and now the Xfinity, and having them on my debut is definitely really special. I'm really excited. I mean, it's what I've been working towards my entire career. You know, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in it, and it's finally paying off. I'm really excited to make the most of it.
Welcome back live to the Daytona International Speedway, LSRTV, your home for sim racing, bringing you our continuing coverage of the Superspeedway Cup Series, live tonight from the Circa 07 configuration. With the World Center of Racing, it's the 5th race on the Season 15 Championship, and we're happy that you're spending your Friday evening with us on iRacing Live. We are going to be halfway home in stage number 1 as we work under our 3rd caution of the evening. And Rachel, before we step away, one of the things we were talking about is how the field is really shuffled up and a lot of the heavy hitters have fallen towards the back. Some of those names have walked their way back inside of the top 10. We've got new faces on the first 2 rows. Travis Brown, another one of the rookies to this Season 15 Championship, is going to be the control car for this one. Andy Kessler, involved in an accident earlier, restarting 2nd. And Jimmy Coleman, all the way back from 31st on the grid, is going to restart inside of row 2 in 3rd.
Yeah, great positioning there for Travis Brown and Kessler. Good to see him back up here, but he has got his last car now. Coleman, no flag, getting his way back to the front. That's good for him. Jorgensen Jr. up there as well. Roman Evans and Tanner Mann there up in the 8th spot. Now it'll be interesting to see what happens. But this restart will be critical. We're at the halfway point in stage 1, Evan. And if we can get more than 2 laps before we get a caution, we are in we're in no stop territory to the end of the stage.
If the field can get you 23 laps, this restart could come with 25 to go to stage. Need 1 yellow, I think, for the drivers to be able to make it to the end of stage number 1 on fuel. Green flag flies, though, as we go back underway. And the big thing I'm looking at is how those new drivers work those front couple of rows. Outside, with a pretty good restart off to turn 1. The 0-1 on the inside. Brown back by about half the car length. He'll fight back to the inside and to center it off of 1 and 2. But Kessler is there. And a good push from Mark Flack in a turn 4 could put him in a position to take the race lead.
He has. Look at this. Up the middle goes Jorgensen Jr. there, moving himself into the 3rd lane, or creating a 3rd lane even at this stage. Brave driving here, especially with an unknown up front. See what he'll do. The 98 of Kessler, though, doesn't want to let him play at all. Not a chance, he says, as now it's Rod Flack's turn to a 3 wide.
Yeah, I don't think that Kessler wanted to leave flag, but with the 88 coming up the middle, if Kessler stayed on that outermost lane with him, he would have got passed up by the 88, so he came down and shut the door. I think that that is a hurtful move for the 98. I mean, he's got Jorgensen on his bumper. The 88 knows how to push it. He's going to be able to hook things up at a 2, but for the time being, about half a lap, it really stunted the momentum of the outside. I really thought Kessler and Flag could have done something at a turn 4 the last time by. Maybe it's going to be all for the better, though, as Flag continues to drop down the scoring pylon. The 98 of Andy Kessler gets pushed out in front, not far enough to drop to the inside, but he has have a nose in front, and the run off the turn number 4 should help him.
Yeah, it really will help at the moment. Kessler could go to the sharp end of this one. In fact, he will lead the lap, at least. Andy Kessler on the sharp end there. Bonus point for him. You know, so Martin Jorgensen Jr. up to second place. Those two could drop down if they wanted to. I think they're going to do just that and secure that lower line. They're not going to move. Actually, no, they're staying higher. Again, benefit of that middle line, Evan.
And the middle line is not normally somewhere you want to be. If you're going forwards, you could work up on that middle or the outside of the racetrack as it is right now, and we're 2x2, but you see the 98, the 88, and the 5 not even dropping down to the bottom. That's something that we see basically only at Daytona circa 07. The cars are just a little bit more stable up the racetrack a little bit as opposed to on the bottom. And in any other race, you get clear, you go to the bottom. But it appears that those lead 5 drivers are at least on the same page. And now Tiller, who has gained 5 spots since the restart, moves into 4th position. Even he has stayed with the single file line. All it takes is one of these drivers to drop to the inside, and it all falls apart. But for the moment, they appear to be on the same page.
Yeah, they really do appear to be on the very same page at this point, because they're all doing exactly the same thing. Tiller's got himself back up here now. That's impressive for him. The driver who was at the back. Caution now, Evan, will mean we go to the end from that point. I'm sure that's on these drivers' minds as they race, but look at this. Dana Osborne up there in the 8 car. That could be a spanner in the works should something go a little bit awry. But look at how many cars are riding up in that middle groove. This is crazy. It's almost the whole front 6 cars.
Yeah, single file line, but it's a couple of car lengths up off to the bottom, which is counterintuitive to what we typically see. Tiller's going to go to the inside, though. He saw the 8 mission of Osborne coming up, and that's where I said all it takes is one driver to break that line, and everybody's going to scatter, and it all falls apart. Tiller's going to go to the middle. Does he get help, though? He needs Osborne to go with him, and he will. So the 8 going to come up the middle as well. Tiller trying to find a way by Jorgensen, who blocks him at turn number 4. We are 3 wide behind and running with the 8 to 5.
Yeah, very, very busy up here in the front. Dana Osborne working his way on the low side. Look at this. Squeezing his way through as it's DeMerchant back there, 3 wide in the middle. And the 78 up top of Coleman. Oh, very busy racing up here at the sharp end. Very busy. A lot of fingers crossed here. Nobody wants to be in a pile-up at this stage. A couple of these cars are the last shot they've got in this race. But it's quieting down a little bit as once again the middle groove just seems a bit faster.
And they get that run off to turn number 3, and if they continue to race like they were that last time around, there's no way that all these cars are going to stay in one piece for the next 19 laps until we get to the end of the stage, as we have now completed 31 laps of action as of this time by. But I'll tell you what, that 69 of Harry Tiller is hungry, man. Went from 11th to 4th very quickly off of the restart, and after not giving up, forced it 3 wide. He is going to go to the race lead at lap number 32. He needs the 6 machine of Haggerty to stick with him, get a big run off of the turn, and hold off Jorgensen, who I think the Jorgensen machine was paying too much attention to Tiller, and he got forced out on the bottom, and now he's in a tricky spot as Osborne goes to his inside, and we go 3 wide once more.
Yeah, they do indeed, and 3 wide is a bit brave even now, but they're racing hard because the end of the stage is in sight, but they know they all have to pit again, so that's going to be important for them to consider. But look at this, up on the top side, Tiller, the very sharp end with Haggerty, Osborne, DeMerchant, Jr., 22, Chaburko's found his way up here all of a sudden, and it's party time.
Everybody knows when the 22 gets into the picture that it's probably going to get a little bit out of hand, oftentimes with the third lane involved. He's the third driver, interestingly enough, back on the outside of the racetrack. Tiller, who took over the race lead way up against the fence, has gone to the inside, and the 88, he's going to turn the 6. 57 and Emergent gets tagged, and it is a mess in turn 3.
Oh, it really is there. 88 just gets up there and just hooks this 6. Osborne, the Merchant, and him go down. Few others behind them, and oh, it becomes big right behind that front group. As looking back at Ramon Evans's viewpoint, you see them come up the track, and it causes a huge logjam, collecting nearly everybody from their back. That is not good.
We'll take a second look at this one on the straightaway. It was Jorgensen who tried to fake out the 6 machine. It was Haggerty who was up on the outside line, leading that line, and the 88 tried to convince him that they were going to go high together, so he kind of walks that 6 up, and then he front stabs him, goes down to the inside, crosses him up, and the tough part for Haggerty there is I think he's just thinking to follow the 88. He kind of comes down over the 88's nose, and you know, if you watch it in slow motion from behind and you saw it from that aerial shot, Rachel, I mean, the 88 was there on his inside. I would just say that move in general to cross somebody up and force a 3 wide, probably not the most advisable thing to do at lap number 33. But those drivers get into each other, and interestingly enough, actually, the 57 comes back up the track, but he didn't actually tag anybody else. A lot of the carnage came from drivers who weren't even a part of the initial contact, getting into each other as they all tried to get on the brakes.
Yeah, absolutely, Evan. You couldn't have said it better. This sort of situation, it's absolutely critical. You've brought somebody into this one that wasn't around for most of this race so far, and they've really kind of gummed things up a little bit. It's changed the flow, and, you know, kind of picking off the record, as it were, it's just caused a massive logjam. And what happened there was exactly that. Everything condensed up as everyone heads down pit road now. Everything condensed up, everything just compressed, and then out it went like springs. Boom, gone, fired. Everyone going out of the way, left, right, and centre. And, well, I mean, look at them. Half of them ended up mooching around down the grass.
And I think the greatest shot of that one, and you just saw it there on board of the 83 Ramon Evans, is he was behind where it all started, got hit, went up into the wall, and he went for a ride up and in the air. That car ended up back end first into the catch fence. You could see the drivers below him before he made contact with the fence and then came back down to the ground. That had to be one of the more scenic accidents we've seen in quite some time, as that car just took off as the air got under its back end in turn number 3. Nonetheless, no matter how many cars are involved, the end result of a caution is the same. But it's the 4th time we get to slow things down here tonight from Daytona. And you expect these races at Circa 07 in comparison to the regular Daytona International Speedway to have a couple of more cautions than normal. I think the first 2 incidents were signs of just exactly that. Drivers getting into each other. You push at a racetrack like this and somebody gets turned. But the last 2 accidents appear that they could have been avoidable, and that one was quite big, involving race leaders up front. One thing that we were talking about before the last restart, Rachel, that applies to this is this caution does now bring us inside of the window to be able to make it on fuel to the end of the stage, so most everybody came down to the pit lane to top off. Some drivers did stay out, though, and I believe the 00 to Wayne Cooper is going to go to the race lead because he decides not to come down pit road. Almost everybody else behind him did. So for those who top it off, they can for sure make it to the end. The 00 is hoping he can save about 2 to 3 laps of fuel under this caution to be able to make it to lap 50.
Yeah, that's going to be brave if you think you can make it to lap 50. I don't think it's quite possible on the maths, but we'll see. You know, people have surprised me in the past. I just don't think it's mathematically possible. We were like in the region of 4 or 5 laps out. That's not recoverable under caution, I don't think. So we'll see exactly what can happen, but it's going to be a tough one to see what will come of it. But we're going to be in for a very intense end to this first stage, I think.
Well, and something else we have to remember is when you work to the end of a race, all you have to do is make it to the checkered flag. If we're racing to lap number 100 like we used to here at Daytona, you don't need fuel to make it 101.5 laps. You just have to make it 100 laps. The stages aren't quite as so right, so you got to complete lap number 50. The caution will then come out. The field is going to group up behind the pace car, come around once. Pit road will then open. Then drivers can come down and get fuel. So in reality, you have to make it to lap 52 on fuel to complete the stage, not just lap 50.
Yeah, very much. And, well, they're going to have to try and do just that, but whether or not they can get there is a whole different matter. So we'll see what they can do in this race. I think it's still going to be very brave to consider that we'll make it to lap 50 and there are no people not refueling. I don't like that call.
We'll see if the lights go out on top of the pace car this time by. Dwayne Cooper would much appreciate if we got as many laps under yellow as we could, but it appears that the quickie cautions may be on here tonight. The caution flag period's not lasted all that long, and the lights go back out on top of the pace car, so we get set to go back underway. Just as we say that, lights going to go back on. So take this opportunity to remind you that the coverage of tonight's Superspeedway Cup Series is brought to you by Joel Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on the sim from behind the wheel, on top of the pit box, or the spotter stand, Joel Real Timing is your go-to software for iRacing timing and scoring analytics. You can get yourself a basic download or get the full pro version today online by logging on to www.joel-real-timing.com for more information. Something else that we should note, and we handed out $20 1 week ago for the I-5 bonus, is the driver who parked at a victory lane, Chris Piscini, had a top 5 from race number 3, so his win at round number 4 netted him a $20 purse to the I-5 bonus, so that prize resets to a $5 bonus. If any of the drivers who finished inside of the top 5 1 week ago go to win here tonight, they'll walk away with $5 extra. So your eligible drivers are Chris Piscini, who won the I-5 as of 1 week ago, Mark Jorgensen Jr., Seth the Merchant, Andrew Berger, and Daniel Holloway. If that $5 bounty is not claimed tonight, it'll go to $10 the next week, $15 the next week, and so on and so forth. So it was unclaimed through the opening of 4 weeks of this season, hence the $20 payout for Altman's as of for Piscini, I should say, as of 1 week ago. The highest that I-5 bonus Rachel has ever gotten was $65, and it's happened twice. So we'll see if we can maybe match that as this season goes on.
We will indeed, and well, we're going to come back to the green flag this time by lap 37 on to lap 40. Time to see whether we make it to the end of the stage in one go, or we come skidding across the line in 15 pieces.
I feel like there's a good chance of either or happening, and it's going to be a 12 lap to go restart. Again, you can see the clock continue to wind down at the top of your screen. These races are capped to 1 hour and 40 minutes in distance. That ends up at about 100 minutes, so we will cross the halfway point as we continue to work down to the end of this stage. We'll take a look top to bottom at your iRacing midway race break when we do complete lap number 50 and hand out the bonus points for the stage completion, which is going to happen in 12 laps from now. Last time we really took a look to the field, there's been a couple of more big incidents in this one. Only 23 drivers right now scored on the lead lap. I don't believe any drivers have officially retired from this race. I'm going to check to confirm if Owen Evans has, and he did. He received a throughput fall, though, to an unacceptable level and is just now getting back into the session. So he did not technically bring that car behind the wall. I believe the only driver who has retired from this race is Scott Fenstermacher, another one of the rookies here with us this season, who's going to end up trickling down the ladder and probably ended up with a 30th place finish, which was obviously not what those guys were looking for.
No, not at all. He'll have to do what he can to try and recover from this. It's unfortunate, but these things do occur in this race. Right now, a number of drivers who are realistically out, but we'll see. Going to come back this time by on to 39, I think it is now, sorry. Didn't realize we were going to wave that time by. But Dwayne Cooper and Harry Tiller. Tiller's going to be a tough opponent for Jorgensen Jr. to get past here, Evan.
And Tiller was going on the restart. The double O caught sleeping a little bit, and it is a brutal restart for Dwayne Cooper. Tiller is clear by the start-finish line on the outside of the racetrack. The 22 of Brandon Shaburko and the snap on forward right there with him. Going to cross him up to the inside. This is a little bit of a rivalry that we've been talking up for the last couple of weeks here at a Superspeedway Cup Series. They're side by side for the race lead.
Certainly are. Certainly is a big check up on the outside behind Tiller there. 76 looks for someone to go. Traburco and Tiller side by side. British and American rivals here. And it's going to be Harry Tiller who shoots up and past him. Can he come down in front of him? Not going to be clear. Has to hold it high. Behind them, Seth the Merchant. Tom Dreiling. That's 00. I apologize, Dwayne Cooper. With Jorgensen Jr. and the 14 of Justin Levine behind him here. It's going to be a tight run here for this final 10 laps.
Drag race going to continue off to turn number 1. Chaburko was just clear a lap ago, but at turn 2. But Tiller not going to give up. He's got the help of the 57 at Emergent behind him. And Chaburko tries to go up to block Tiller. He will. The 69 goes to cross him up, and that is not going to work. And you can see that Tiller has no intentions of working with Brandon Chaburko. And I think that got the best of him, because the better call there would have been for Tiller to just stay behind Chaburko. Instead, he's getting forced out to a third lane, and at 14, Levine's going to bail him out as he lifts to let him back in line.
Yeah, he does, and it's really been his breakaway group we're seeing here, this 8-car pack that's formed here with Chaburko, Tiller, Cooper, Levine, Jorgensen Jr., and man, oh, problems!
Levine going to get turned, and caution flag will fly once more. More problems starting from up towards the front of the field, and that was 3 wide gone awry, and that all ties back to Tiller's going to that third most lane on the outside of the racetrack. He didn't want to work with Chaburko. Chaburko came up and blocked him, and Tiller was going backwards. Justin Levine lifts in turn number 4 to get the 69 back down in line, and what that does is it gives Jorgensen an opportunity to either lift as well or go to the outside. And the 88 decided to go to that third lane, so we were 3 wide at the start-finish line. And this one is caused by the 5. Just the slightest of movements for Tanner Mann pushes up the racetrack. He tags the 88. Jorgensen spins down, hits Levine, who goes up into the outside wall. And miraculous job for the 24-5 of the 88 to hang on to those cars. This could have been a lot worse. Justin Levine not going to feel any better about that one, though, because he took quite a lick in turn 1, and that car is basically junked.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be quite as bad as that, but that's a real crimp on what we were expecting to see towards the end of this one. In fact, it'll make it probably a bit worse, because we'll have maybe 4 laps to go once we come back from this caution before the end of the stage. So it's going to be a pretty aggressive end to things, but to see something go wrong there, and it was actually, looking at a 5 who moved up and turned the 88, and one of those situations just impossible to avoid.
So we hit the reset button once more, and I guess this could be good news for Dwayne Cooper. We were still questioning if he was going to be able to make it on fuel, and I guess this pays dividends to his strategy, because if he had any realistic shot of being able to make it to the end of the stage off of that last restart, then with another yellow and about 3 or 4 more laps of pacing, there is no reason why he shouldn't be able to make it to the end of this stage. Andrew Berger with damage is going to come down to the pit lane. So will Mark Jorgensen Jr., but it looks like all of the drivers who were not involved in that accident are basically going to stay out. A couple of drivers towards the back coming in and topping off, expecting them to get fuel and tires just in case. But now we set ourselves up for a 5-lap dash to the end, and the way that these past stints have been running, I don't think it's unfair to put out, Rachel, that if we get a yellow 2, 3, 4 laps before that lap 50 point, if that caution would bridge us through lap 50, that would count as the end of the stage caution, so it might not even be a 5-lap run to the end.
It will be a 4 or 5 lap run to the end of this way, and it's going to be a messy one, because these guys are going to be scrapping all over each other for this stage win. These points mean so much now, Evan.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about the strategy to which building this thing up and trying to get yourself into the championship by all means necessary. And we said it earlier at the top of the show, but we'll remind you that the drivers in this playoff picture into tonight, 4 different races, 4 different winners. So 4 of the 12 positions are taken by drivers with wins. But there are 13 races on the regular season. So in theory, we could have 13 different race winners. That doesn't mean that one race winner is going to get bumped. Every single race winner, and then at minimum 5 points paying positions. So if only 4 drivers win all season, then 5th through 12th are going to be in on points. If 13 different drivers win, then we're going to see 14th position on through 5 more spots to get in on points. So there is always going to be points positions available. The win and you're in. I think that's the best strategy to go with, but easier said than done at wrapping some of these things up, especially considering just how chaotic these races get towards the ends of them. So points are critical. And the stage racing, which was introduced for the first time this season in the Superspeedway Cup Series, mimics how the points are given out in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. 1 point increments, top to bottom. Only the top 10 get points. 10 points for first, 9 for second, 8 for third, fourth, and so on and so forth until the driver who comes home in 10th gets 1 point, and 11th on the back gets nothing. 10 points here, 9 points there, a couple of 6s and 5s. You could almost make up for a whole race worth of points. And even though drivers may not get the win rate, we've already seen instances this season where the driver who wins the stage doesn't win the race. We have not yet seen a driver win the stage, I guess, and then also win the race. But earlier this season, the driver who won the stage came second in the race. They ended up actually getting more points than the race winner. So these stages are critical, and it's going to be a quick adjustment period to get used to them.
Yeah, it really will be, and it's something they have to really put into their minds at this point of this season, because yeah, even though it's early, you can't really stop thinking about it until even the very beginning of these races. So it's important to see what they do, but they have to be in a mindset of season long.
Just taking a listen in on driver radio. A lot of drivers just now catching up to the field, getting off of the pit lane. Paul Servant, Frank Basilia, Data Osborne, Rodney Wofford, Tom Dryerling, Scott Warren, somebody who's getting away by, so is Andrew Berger. It looks like so is Chris Pasidi as well. So we'll find ourselves with about 26 cars total on the lead lap. When we get set to go back green flag race it, I expect the lights on top of the pace car to go off this time by. We will see if they do. Shaperko and Tiller are going to be lined up 2 by 2 on the front row of the racetrack. Survey says lights are out. So next time by, we'll take lap number 46, and it will be a 5 lap to go shootout to complete stage number 1.
Yeah, it will be, and well, it's a good start here at the moment, or will be a good start shortly, I should say, because 5 laps is going to be get up and go time, Evan. It's time for these boys to do what they have to do, and I will be surprised if we have more than maybe the front 8 cars pull away in its initial start.
And well, we'll obviously be watching the battle for the stage win up front, up the number 2 in first positions. Again, keep it in mind, the top 10 are the points paying positions, and the stage does not end, assuming we get to and complete lap number 50 under green flag conditions. The stage does not end, and that caution will not fly until the 10th place driver crosses the start finish line. So you can't hit the line and lift. Race leader's got to stay on the gas off to 1 and 2. Not going to be that big of a deal, because we're only one pack. We're going to have a 20-car lead pack for this thing, and that yellow is only going to be lead by about a second or 2 at most. But we have seen times this season in which 10th place has been over 10 seconds behind, and the race leader at the completion of lap 50 at the start-finish line is not who led when the yellow came out, because those drivers by that point had battled side by side off to turns number 1 and 2. So it's going to be Brandon Chaburko to the inside and Harry Tiller to the outside of the front row. They have no intentions of working amongst each other. Only one of them can get the 10 points for the stage win here tonight from Daytona International Speedway. 45 of 50 laps complete in this stage. The pace car going to go down to the inside. Look for the 69 to try to yes the restart. Not as good as his last one as we go back underway. Chaburko clear for the point.
And it's a much scrappier start than I actually expected, Evan. These guys really didn't put too much into this one. In fact, a lot of them have really backed out, perhaps because I think they might be expecting fireworks in this front 5 cars who really have tried here. And Tiller's going to be on the outside there. Chaburko up front in a position to really have a good attack in this one. Nobody wants to work with Tiller at this point. He's kind of sitting there on his own as Chaburko plays his defensive wild games. In fact, he's pulled up to 57 and ditched him off there, which is classic Brandon Chaburko. He led him up the track and opened a gap there for the 01 of Travis Brown to get inside there of Seth the Merchant, which stops Seth the Merchant being quite as big a threat Lets him pull up and ride this train forwards. He's playing with this field.
He's trying to control both the inside and the outside lane. He'll come up, pull the 57 to merge it up to him, go back down to the bottom. He'll suck the 01 up to him, and that way, no single line is getting an advantage on Jack. You see Brown get a little bit of a run. 22 sees it, goes down and tries to protect that lane. And it is a very slippery slope, but it is an art form to be able to successfully drive the inside and the outside. I was just surprised that Brown didn't go with Tiller, because those are two drivers who are rookies to this series, and we have seen some of the series veterans be a little bit reluctant to work with some of the newcomers. Tiller has not found a lot of assistance in these close-knit battles up in the front of the field, but as Traburco drops at the bottom, it is going to be Tiller who pushes DeMerchant to the point as we complete 47 laps. Travis Brown, a little bit out of shape. He hangs on with 3 laps to go in the stage.
He does, and we're going to have to see exactly what will come of this one at the end here, as now it is DeMerchant, Traburco, and Tiller likely your stage winners, but look at Rod Flag quietly here with the 0-0 of Dwayne Cooper. Both there can get involved in this one, but I think it's DeMerchant and Tiller are the real threats at this stage. Big block there, but Harry Tiller on Dwayne Cooper. Did not want to let him go through, but a huge run there for the English driver.
You can see just how fast the 57 drops back now without that support. Flag is going to go roll up to his back end and help him out. 2 laps to go as 48 laps are now complete. Dwayne Cooper made the strategy call to stay out and not take on fuel on the second most recent caution flag. And if he can get bonus points out of this stage for finishing in the top 10 of the stage, that's a win for the driver who rolled off of the grid in 26th position earlier on this evening. But the 57 DeMerchant not very happy that Tiller left him out to dry. Took quite the shot to his back end as he caught back up to him, and now with the roles reversed, the 69 leads the 57 to 3-4 as we come to take lap number 50.
We do indeed, and over the end of this lap that will be our scoring point. Harry Tiller defending here from Seth DeMerchant to a great position, but Traburco drops down. Big run for him on the attack as he comes now. Tiller's got to keep his eyes open for this and see what he can do to try and stop the charging bull of Brandon Traburco, who there right behind Seth DeMerchant. All of a sudden, Rod Flag on the top side. We'll see where they'll pan out as they come across the line this time by. And don't forget, Evan, again, it's the once we get 10 cars across, and Tiller will get it easily.
Thinking that it is not the white flag, so there is no race it back caution. Flag is out. And all of a sudden, all of the drivers that Harry Tiller was racing against are gone.
Yeah,
big
Rod
issues.
Flag, it's crazy. Rod Flag just dives down the track. Maybe a tap from behind from the 78, but he goes down the track, hits Traburco the 0-0. They split open. It kills DeMerchant and everyone else, and that's literally every car behind Harry Tiller is gone. That's the easiest stage win in his life.
He knew that something was coming, and if there was any situation in which he could breathe a sigh of release across the line, that was it. I think at that point, nobody was lifted. I had made the point earlier that these drivers, we had to treat the end of these stages like a race to the end of this thing, and Traburco gets hit. The 00 of Cooper gets taken out. Then DeMerchant spins. The 78 almost made it through, and quite literally, nobody survived that. The closest driver to make it through the carnage was Mark Jorgensen Jr., who was running in 13th position at the time, and even he took quite a hit as a driver that was spinning on its lid came across the racetrack right in front of him. And all I can tell you is Harry Tiller is your stage winner. We have no idea who's second through 9th are going to be in that one.
No, we don't, and that's the crazy part of that is it's just that's a lot of bunked race cars there. A couple of those guys have already had crashes. Let's not forget, Evan. That could be them out of this race, but a couple of those guys now they're down to just their backup, and we're barely halfway.
We'll cross the halfway point under this yellow, but there's a lot of pieces that need picked up. So we'll take another quick opportunity to step aside. Keep it locked, LSRTV nonstop. And when we come back, we'll take a look at your iRace and midway race break and continue to count it down to 40 minutes left to go from Daytona International Speedway. You're watching the Superspeedway Cup Series on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
Introducing a whole new form of racing to the best online racing simulation in the world. This is Dirt Racing on iRacing.com. Race online at some of America's most legendary dirt tracks, including Eldora and Williams Grove. iRacing is the premier online racing game featuring NASCAR, IndyCar, sports cars, and now World of Outlaws, the leading sanctioning body for dirt racing. iRacing is easy to use and features a centralized ranking system to make sure you have the best experience at any skill level. With a massive inventory of high-precision laser scan tracks and cars with an unmatched dedication to quality and detail, iRacing gives you the most authentic online racing experience available. Thanks to iRacing's dynamic track system, developed specifically for dirt racing, tracks change over the course of a race, just like your favorite dirt track on a Friday or Saturday night. From a slick racing groove all the way up to the cushion, iRacing's dirt tracks deliver non-stop racing action. Partnered with the World of Outlaws, iRacing is your source for the most authentic dirt racing experience available, featuring 4 brand new tracks and 11 new cars, including street stocks, Legends cars, late models, NASCAR trucks, winged and non-winged sprint cars, with much more on the way. Join the Dirt Revolution on iRacing.com and start slinging mud today.
Back live from Daytona Beach, Florida, as the lights go out on top of the pace car and we get set to turn our attention to the clock. I want to welcome you back to LSRTV's coverage of the Superspeedway Cup Series on iRacing Live. Evan Pasoko, Rachel Whiteford topside with you with Cisco Scaramuza downstairs. Rachel, the Stage 1 has just come to a conclusion, and in our 4th different race under this format, we have seen our 4th different stage winner. So Harry Tiller joins the likes of Paul Servant, Chris Passini, and Justin Levine as stage winners this season. The stage winner has yet to win a race, though. In 2017, Tiller wants to make up for that. He'll restart with about 36 minutes left on the clock in the top position with 14 active cars still alive and on the lead lap.
Yeah, not many, which is a surprise. We have 14 cars. Some of those victims so far, out of the lead lap, I should say, Rod Flagg, Ruben at a second, Rodney Warford, Gary Champion, Jared Haggerty, Dinner Osborne, Tom Dreiling, Ramon Evans, Andy Kessler. So some big names there out of the running at this stage. And a lot of the rest of this field, they are on their last life. They get one hit now, they're done.
And we have been counting down laps for you, and you've been able to see what laps we've been working at on the right-hand side of your screen. All that matters now is the clock up top as we go back underway. 35 minutes, 20 seconds left to go from Daytona International Speedway. That's about on par with the amount of time we've been seen to be left in these races after we get through the opening stage of this thing. But the biggest change for this one is because there's so little cars left on the lead lap, there's quite a few down one lap, about 6 or 7. So if we get a yellow and those drivers get wave bys, it's going to change completely. But I think with a 14 car count on the top lap that we could be able to go green to the end of this thing.
It's more than possible, and well, they're up to speed now, and Harry Tiller there with the Merchant and Brasilia the third, along with Josh Ball just dropping back a little bit on the inside. Second group is really where it's busy. Rob Flagg pulls out and drops back. He wants to stay at the back till this is much, much later. I think he doesn't want to be in the front for the time being. Like I said, a lot of these guys, if they have one crash, they are done. And as it was nearly 3 wide there with Chaburko and Jones Jr., anything's possible.
Yeah, you look back at these names, you've got Harrington in the mix, but there's drivers here that are also not on the lead lap. Jared Haggerty is not on the lead lap in that battle, and he's right in the thick of things, so that's something to keep in mind as they still go 3 wide up to quarter number 3, not making my prediction all that very likely if we continue to battle like this, and that's not how you do it. Contact 4 wide in the corner. Yeah, that's not going to work.
No, that doesn't kind of help things, unfortunately, as that's what's going to bring out our issue at the moment. And we keep talking about this. Don't do it too soon, and those cars are all, well, Chaburko's done for sure.
Yeah, the 22 is pushing the 76 through the middle, and I don't know if the 76 was a willing participant in that, but he can't really lift. The 22's on his bumper, and the contact came between the 76 and the 82. And I thought at that point it was done, but they both pushed up the racetrack and we were going to be okay. But then the 22 at Chaburko tries to squeeze between the 76 and the 24, and you know, there's just no room down there. For Andrew Berger. Berger gets on the apron. I think the back end pushes up a little bit. Chaburko slides up into the 76, and they go for a ride off of turn number 4. Chaburko into the inside fence. That's probably going to do it for his night. And so far, I'd rather so much for going to green to the end of that one. Caution flag comes back out right off of the restart. And, well, we've been telling you all night long how difficult 2x2 is, and I can promise you 4 wide is not an option.
It's going to be one of our shortest races in terms of laps run, Evan, all season. We've only got 32 minutes left on the clock. That is not a lot of time.
Still on what would have been the lap counter way that we used to do things. 43 laps to go in this thing. I doubt we're going to see that much more to the end of it. The pace car just now catching up to Tiller, so I believe pit road should have been closed the last time by because Tiller wouldn't have been allowed to pit. Because he was still being instructed to wait for the pace car, so I don't believe pit road was open unless a couple of drivers got lucky. No, looks like pit road did open after Tiller passed the entrance, so a tough break for him because he was still following instructions and waiting on the pace car. So if Tiller was planning on coming down, he's going to have to pit the next time by, and he's going to lose a bunch of spots. Doesn't happen often, but if you get caught off in that tough position for the 69, I believe that pit road was closed when he drove by it as the leader, and it opened a couple of cars behind him.
Yeah, it was, and that's not an ideal situation for anyone to find themselves in, but I wouldn't call this a pit window. There'll be plenty of time, I think, with the way this race is going to come back into pit road. I don't think there's going to be any harm of running out of fuel.
I'll give it a minute as drivers cycle back out of the pit lane. Once the scoring updates and cycles through, we'll take an opportunity to take a look top to bottom at your iRacing midway race break. But yeah, 30 minutes going to be left under the yellow. I think we'll restart with about 28 minutes left on the clock. You figure based on trends, and the biggest thing is, and ironically enough, Rachel, we're going to get more cars on the lead lap off of this incident than we had before. Because all of those drivers that were waiting on a wave by, I think, are going to get back to the lead lap. And I feel like we're going to have more than the 14 that were actively running on the racetrack at that time. So that's going to mean that you get a little bit of a bigger pack, more cars to the pack, higher likely of getting a yellow flag to come out. And trends say tonight maybe 2 more yellows to the end of this thing, so you think maybe get this thing down to lap 70, 75 or so as we work lap number 58 at the moment. I think that maybe that's the number we'll hit once the clock that sits at 30 minutes and 25 seconds rounds down. But lights stay on top of the pace car as of that time around. So let's take this opportunity to take a look at our iRacing midway race break, brought to you by iRacing. iRacing is the leading online racing simulation developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service. iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks from all around the globe. And in the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is your one-stop shop for online racing with officially sanctioned series with the likes of NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, and more. So as the clock continues to wind down, up in front of the field is Harry Tiller, looking to become not only first driver to win a stage and then the main event this season, but also looking for his first career points paying win. Did win earlier on this season in his respective duel. That one, though, was a non-points one, doesn't count for the statistical records. Josh Ball back in the series, running in second position at the moment, accompanied by Seth the Merchant in third, Andrew Berger in fourth, and Mark Jorgensen Jr. inside of the top 5, so plenty of heavy hitters still up in this thing. Frank Basilia making a special appearance back in this series for tonight only. The 94 Ford is on the outside of row 3 and 6 position. Then you've got Paul Servant, Brandon Cruz, Monster Vice, the Dark Horses, running in 7th and 8th position. Dan Harrington is 9th and Chris Passini is 10th.
11th place tonight will go to Sean McCarrick, with Travis Brown in 12th place, Daniel Holloway in 13th, Rod Flagg in 14th, Ray Ritnell second is 15th place, with Mike Thiel, Scott Warren, Brandon Chaburko. Last cars on the lead lap up to 18th place, with Jimmy Coleman. Ramon Evans is your top 20.
And we start to talk about multiple laps down when we get to this point. 21st and 3 laps down is Jared Haggerty. Dwayne Cooper added this race in 22nd. Rodney Wofford is 23rd. Titterman 24th. And Gary Champion in 25th spot. Tom Dryerling, Dana Osborne, Justin Levine, Scott Fensterbacher, and Andy Kessler through 30th position. Mike Schultz 31st, and then Larry Kemp 32nd on that 4th and final page as I look top to bottom at your iRacing midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you go to iRacing.com and sign up today for a limited time. If you go to iRacing.com/World of Outlaws, you can take advantage of some exclusive promo codes. You get yourself a 1-year iRacing membership for over 50% off the sticker price, or if you just want to try the sim out, you can get a 3-month subscription for less than $5, and that includes all of the basic membership content. Again, that deal is valid on new iRacing memberships only, available for a limited time at iRacing.com/World of Outlaws. Up at the front of the field, meanwhile, lights out on top of the pace car. We get set to do the dance once more, Rachel, inside of 30 minutes to go. Tiller has kind of been an aggressor up there tonight, which doesn't fit his typical MO. It's really been him getting physical and aggressive to counter what Chaburko's been doing. The 22 is way back at 18th position. He's got a lot of damage, no quick fixes left, so Tiller's in a great spot here to do this.
I'd say it's exactly the sort of thing Tiller would really relish at the moment, as a lot of his rivals already had this one, but you can't count Junior out. He's in a weakened field, and he could smell the front of this field now as the pace car takes a long left-hand turn to pit road. The green flag will fly. Tiller makes the jump. It's a good start by the inside line. Once again, the outside struggling. Ball, Berger, Brasilia, and please the number 52 start with a B. McCarrick.
Caution behind. Somebody is off, and it is Mike Thiel. The Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet has a lot of smoke coming out of the back of his entry, and we'll check things up just like that. I was looking up at the front of the field, so we'll have to take a look back to see what happened towards the back of this one. And it looks like Mike Thiel restarted on the inside of the racetrack in line with the 10 and the 78. Brandon Chaburka was on the outside, and I mean, the 22 had quite the run from, I'm not going to say he was sandbagging on the restart, but he was quite far behind and had a big run coming up to it. But I'd have to say that Mike Thiel just wasn't checking the beers. Brandon Chaburka was on his outside. He went up high, I think, to follow Rod Flagg up to that outermost lane, and car high. That's what we have spotters for, and he just kind of came up and chopped Brandon Chaburka into the fence.
Yeah, he did, and so it's one of those awkward situations you have, and this track really doesn't help people's mentalities. There've been so many cautions. People aren't into this long run mentality yet. They've not got the rhythm going, and they've not been able to get the rhythm going all night long, Evan. It's been one of those very choppy races, and I think our longest run so far, and I'm going to be incredibly critical here, but our longest run so far has been about 9 laps. So it's not.
That was early. That might have been the first one.
Yeah, that was the first 9 laps.
And the problem
never been that good since.
Right, and on time. And I think tonight it's been better than past weeks because I feel like these cautions have actually been going by quite quick. Maybe a lap or so less than what we've been seeing in the yellows in the weeks prior. I don't know. I'll have to maybe pay attention on this one as Tiller's up behind the pace car and back down to the pit lane, in which he did not come down to last time, which means that his pitting this time is going to get him back on cycle, but drivers are going to stay out. So Tiller is going to have to reap the havoc of being caught off on the pit lane opening when he was past it under the last caution flag. So he'll come down to the pit lane and get that thing touched up, but the issue is you lose anywhere from 6 to 8 laps under the caution flag, and you take a look at the top of your screen, 3 cautions would completely obliterate all the time that's left on the clock. So these drivers, well, 24 minutes is a good amount of time to race. You can do almost 28 laps of green flag racing in that time. The problem is these guys are racing like where if 3 yellows were to end this race, we're basically more so talking about a mentality of 15 laps to go instead of 24 minutes to go. So you have a lack of green flag racing. These guys haven't had an opportunity to really be racing around each other that much. For those who maybe need more track time at a pack at Daytona 07, it means that they're only getting put in high pressure situations, into positions where quite honestly they can't lift. They're up front, and these guys, like every single restart, got one less restart, or run it at a time. So at no point, Rachel, are people going to get more patient. It's out of the question. It's not going to happen. Every single restart we have, people are going to want to be more aggressive. And it seems counterintuitive to see a wreck, then get a restart, see a wreck right off of the restart. But at the same time, you're running out of opportunities. And these guys are really starting to think that this thing's coming down to the end of it. Again, on time, we could go green for about 28 laps. But because of the caution flags, we're starting to get towards that 15-10 lap to go mentality.
Yeah, it is, and they're trying to get positions because they know there's no long run coming, so they have to try and get something whilst there is a caution out, whilst before the caution comes out. So you've got maybe 5-6 laps at the moment with how things are going to get positions before a caution. It's just not giving them breathing room to actually get into that long run go. They have to make spots as they are, and that causes the next caution.
So Tiller, who came down to the pit lane, is going to end up in 7th position. I can only assume that all 6 drivers, without checking, who came down to the pit lane the last time, but I believe they did. So Seth the Virgin stays out. He'll go to the race lead. Josh Ball going to go up to 2nd. Mark Jorgensen Jr. is up to 3rd. Dan Harrington up to 4th. Sean McCarrick in 5th. Today, Andrew Berger in 6th position. Then you will find the drivers who pitted under this yellow from 7th position on back. Tiller, Holloway, Brown, Passini inside of the top 10. 2 incidents ago, we had 14 drivers left on the lead lap. That's when we lost a large portion of this field, and we had a big accident in corners 3 and 4. 2 incidents later, after having only 14 cars on the lead lap, we have 17. Because for every incident, somebody who's lurking and just kind of putting around 1 or 2 laps down gets a wave around, gets back to the lead lap, and that's how we continue to see the field size not necessarily grow. I wouldn't see 3 drivers getting back to the lead lap as growing, but the field is not going to diminish as quickly as it did after that one big accident that took out a lot of cars that had already used up their one and only available quick fix.
Yeah, and that's really hurt them at this point. It's, again, there aren't going to be, once this gets going again, we aren't going to see many more people that can take another hit. And they have to race hard now if they want to be in this thing. So this field, I don't think will finish with 10 cars on the lap.
And speaking of that point, drivers just chatting over the radio now. Harry Taylor asking the other guys, any of you guys got a quick repair left? Because this field is really dwindled down. Early in these races, you see a couple of wrecks, and it feels like we can get through 4 or 5 caution flags without the field size diminishing, and that's because you got drivers getting involved in that their first accidents, I guess I should say, using up that quick repair, get it out on the racetrack. When you start to junk them this late into a race and start to crawl up towards the 8s and the 9s when you're talking about caution flags. The amount of cars left at the lead lap will definitely suffer. Not all of those 17 drivers who are on the lead lap are in fact part of this lead pack. I'd say about 12 of them are competitive. There's quite a few of them that are, while on the lead lap, have quite some damage. Chaburko being a name that falls into that category that can't necessarily do much about it. And in fact, Chaburko was actually decided to park the 22, so I think his night is now done.
Yeah, officially his one will be retired from this point forward, so that's given us maybe 17 cars, 16 cars at this point. So no, he was already a few laps down, so that's his day over. Jorgensen Jr., DeMerchant, Tiller, Ball, Berger. There's a lot of guys up here that can still do this one. Chris Bassini is quite a way back. Rod Flag too. They're in this still. Again, one big crash. We see what we're left with.
And there are some big names out of this race. And again, at the top of your screen, basically anybody outside of the top 20 is parked in and behind the wall. So while the field may be diluted a little bit, there's still heavy hitters up here. DeMerchant, Ball, Jorgensen, Berger, Tiller, Passini, Warren, Flag, even Paul Servant, I think we can put into that conversation with Monsivice. This could be a great opportunity for them. At the same time, there are less heavy hitters, so it's an equally as good as an opportunity for a Sean McCarrick or a Daniel Holloway to park in a victory lane. How about Travis Brown looking for maybe a first career win in this series? Pace car down at 19 minutes left on the clock as we try it again.
We certainly do, and Tiller moving up towards Berger already. That was a bit of a risky move already. As into turn number 1 we go. This time, lap 66. Just how far do we get on this run before we get a caution? This bumpy track is really claiming victims so far. Ball and the 82 on the outside still. That's Dan Harrington and Josh Ball. Now everyone goes up there, so we're getting in the same position again. We have a lot of cars up there. A little bit further back, things are spread out, so we might actually have a green run here if people can keep off each other.
And that's the key. Look at the 88 of Jorgensen on the bumper of the 57. It goes slow. He's trying to find a way around Seth the Birch to get to his inside. And we'll go side by side for the race lead, completing 66 laps with 18 minutes and 25 seconds left until the checkered flag comes out. Ball also going to go from the top of the racetrack to the bottom. It seems counterintuitive. We are used to seeing only drivers going from the bottom to the top. But because there is more space, it is a lead pack that is only 9 cars deep. There's more real estate to play with. And as the 88 goes up to block, Ball left alone on the inside of the racetrack, drops back. As Jorgensen doing what we saw Chaburko do earlier on, and it's a tricky task. We also saw Tiller do a fairly effective job of it as well, and that is trying to control both the inside and the outside of the racetrack. When done right, it keeps you in front. When done wrong, it turns you into the fence.
It really does, and up there it's going to be a lead single file pack, and it's Jorgensen Jr., DeMerchant, Ball, McCarrick, Tiller, Berger, Brown in that front group. No, Brown's just behind that group, so his last car in there is 6th place. This could be our ticket to a good clean end to this one here, but it's going to be tight. Still a bit of 3 wide for the back, 1 car in the fence back there. I think that was just behind Scott Warren. That was possibly Mike Thiel, actually. No, I'm looking. It was actually Ramon Evans who got a bit of wall.
Not going to help his cause as he runs in 2 laps down, just really trying to stay out there on the racetrack to get some wave buys to get back to the lead lap. But as you watch the guys up front, what I noted under caution is that Tiller came down to the pit lane, topped off, restarted in 7th position, and we restarted this race with 19 minutes to go. That's really close to a whole fuel run. I think Tiller might be able to make it. If we go green to the end, we're going to be going 21, 22 laps. I think the 69 could just make it. I don't know, though, if we go green, that the drivers who stayed out would be able to hit that number. So that could be big, and keep that in mind as this race continues to unfold.
Yeah, that could be critical for these guys, and the fuel will be very, very close here. 16 minutes left on the clock. 16 minutes. That's close. We could be very tight to this one, but I think if we go green, it could just make this.
Also, you saw it at the back end there at the 88th the last time by, that orange windshield banner on the top of the 57, Seth the Merchant. Again, he is one of your I-5 bonus drivers. Winner from 1 week ago, Chris Bassini had a top 5 finish the week prior to that, so he won a $20 I-5 bonus. There is $5 up for grabs for your top 5 finishers from 1 week ago at Talladega. Seth the Merchant is one of them. So if the 57 is able to put this car into victory lane, Mark Jorgensen Jr. in the 88 as well included in that one. Andrew Berger, also an eligible driver. Holloway, still technically in this, back in 12th position, is an eligible driver. And Passini is too, 16th position. So all 5 of those I-5 bonus cars are still on the lead lap. If any of those names with those orange windshield banners put it in victory lane, they get a $5 bonus on top of obviously what the win entails, and that is a ticket to the playoffs.
Yeah, very much. And got some action happening. Josh Ball goes at the inside here of some of these cars on the high side. We also have some too wide up here at the front. Johnson Jr. still leading with DeMerchant, and Ball trying to side draft up there to Tiller. Side drafting on this track is very risky, Evan, because it's so bumpy you can hit someone so easily.
You don't even have to walk it down the hill to hit somebody. You just hit a bump, the back end of the car steps out the slightest bit, and especially at these speeds, oftentimes you don't actually have to get right to the guy for that hitbox to be recognized or the car to get a little bit loose from the contact. The air pushes it around, and things get ugly very quickly when you're doing 198 miles an hour with a race car that does not want to stay pointed in the direction in which you're pointing it in. So we head back off to turn 1, side by side for third. Josh Ball on the inside of the racetrack. The 24 is big here as he gets a big push from Berger. The 88 and the 57 are going to have to decide something. Ball has been able to hang tight on the inside because the drivers on the top side have been lifting. Now that Ball has support, the 88's got to get a little bit more aggressive, and you can see that as the 57 actually pushed him that time down the back straightaway, and Jorgensen drops to the inside.
Yeah, it has, and now we've got some too wide racing up here. Jorgensen Jr. controlling the front as he needs to, but DeMerchant's going to be a bit of a threat on the outside. Tiller won't be lifting off.
He's in a tough spot now because he's in the, well, he's fourth that time by the start finish now, but I think Andrew Berger in a little bit of a better spot on the inside of the racetrack. The 69 is pushing the 57, and a couple of drivers have been coming over the radio. Frank Pasilia specifically, who's in that second pack, 7th position on back, 2x2x2. They're 4.6 seconds off of the top spot. It is a good battle back there for position. Those drivers having concerns about overheating. That's something that the 57 and the 24 are in a tricky spot of, because if they continue to push the guys in front of them like they have to, those engine temperatures are going to go up. They need clean air getting to the front of those cars.
Yeah, definitely. And clean air. Oh, very close there. Ball and Tiller nearly slapped sides of their cars. And that would have been absolutely fatal at this stage. I don't think either of them has got something spare in the trailer. So it's going to be a tight one as they get very close in the corners. Again, very brave there by Ball to get so close to Harry Tiller. Really, really dangerous stuff on this track.
And a 48 machine looks like he's going to blend in line, and we will go single file up at the front of the field. It's Jorgensen, DeMerchant, Tiller, Ball, and Berger. Dan Harrington was 6th position in the final driver in this lead group, but when you are the final driver in a group, you have the suck up for the cars in front of you, but you do not have the push of a driver behind you. And because of that, Dan Harrington has been unable to maintain touch with race leaders 0.7 of a second slower that last time by, as he's lost the benefit of the draft. He is most definitely going to fall back to that second group, and that second group is very slow as well. They're now 6 seconds off of the top spot because they're riding single file, or rather 2x2, in comparison to the race leaders who are running single file, which is the faster way around the racetrack. So as it stands right now, it's only down to what's a 5-horse race.
It is, and 5 horses that could very easily have to be put down after falling on a jumpers again. A bit of a slap there, and oh, to get him loose. DeMerchant very loose there between Tiller and Jorgensen Jr. Very nearly causing some big problems on the track, but again, these guys are getting very aggressive. The time's running down, and they know these guys are the ones in contention. It's 6 seconds back to the next pack, and it's that side drafting that's really getting me nervous here, Evan.
Yeah, and the 48's got to do what he's got to do, but if these guys can make it on fuel, and again, I'm skeptical that the drivers who stayed out can. I think if anybody's good, it's the 69 at Tiller. But if they think they can make it on fuel, and they're not planning on coming down pit road, then you can't wreck. You're in a perfect spot right now. The guy's 7th on the back. They're now single file. If we can take a peek back to 7th position, Travis Brown, Basilia, Holloway, Servant, McCarrigan, Flag. They're single file now, which is good. And they have more cars than the drivers up front, which means that they'll be a little bit quicker. So don't count those drivers out yet. They have gotten single file and they stand a chance. But if you're this group up front, you cannot be going side by side with each other, rubbing into each other, and getting yourself out of shape. You're going to have to lift. You're going to allow those drivers to come back in. And I can guarantee you they would much rather race 5 drivers for the race win instead of 14 drivers. So these guys up front have it made. Don't blow it.
Yeah, blowing it right now would be the worst thing they could possibly do, and that's a statement of the obvious, but no, they're in a position here where this is really going to be a race between them, and they need to kind of protect what they have, because if they leave it, they're in a great spot here. This is going to be a nice little quiet fight between them, and they don't have to involve anybody else. A caution here, that hurts everybody in this front group, because right now they're in a fantastic spot to not have to fight other people, and when there's only 5 of them, they've got room to race.
And it appears that it's still only Ball who's wanting to work on the inside, and he's able to stay there because of the side draft. Typically, we would see the 4 drivers on the inside, and the guy pinching everybody down would be up on the outside of the racetrack. But the guys on the top side are allowing the 48 to come through, not willingly, but it's because they're lifting, feathering the throttle, keeping that little bit of distance in between them, because we've been talking all night long about how treacherous things can be when you actually make contact with somebody's bumper. So, and the 48's got to drop down. So Josh Ball is not going to be able to make it on fuel. He comes down pit road, and that might have been a speeding penalty. He knocked over that pit lane commitment cone, and we'll keep an eye on the 48 to see if he got penalized. If Ball can't make it, though, I don't think Jorgensen can.
Certainly not, and I'm just going to have a quick count on his pit stop, because this looks like a hold. He's not good up on the jacks. Yeah, he got a penalty. He's got a 15-second hold. That's his race done.
And in all honesty, if this race is to continue to go green, I think that having to pit would have ended it for him regardless, but you can't afford to overshoot it. And here we go. Seth the Merchant over the radio. The 57 says that he cannot make it on fuel, but Tiller's going to pit with them. So even pitting on this most recent caution means that you're not going to be able to make it to the end, so that changes everything. All 4 of the drivers up front are in it. It looks like it was clean. Jorgensen, DeMerchant, Tiller, and Berger down pit road. That second group has now taken over the race lead, led by Travis Brown.
Good pack entry there by that group there. Travis Brown does take over Basilia up there with him, but I think these guys might have to pit, so it's going to be a tight one. Tiller got off the pit road first of that second group. That could actually hurt him, because everyone else is quite a distance behind, and they'll build up speed without him.
And again, when these drivers pitted under yellow, it was lap number 65. And again, we're talking about time. But as we work right now, we're at lap number 80. That's 15 laps. You can go maybe 21. There's 8 minutes left on the clock. That's probably 9 laps, and that's probably 3 laps too much that you can take on a fuel. So I believe that everybody's going to have to pit, which I think stings a little bit more for Ball, because Rachel, I said him having to pit would have cost him the race anyways. Now, though, that it's looking like everybody's pitting, the 48 had a shot, and the thing that takes him out of this race is him speeding on the entry as opposed to him having to pit in the first place.
Oh, he destroyed it with the entry. He was way too fast. It's cost him the race. He'll probably be kicking himself for this one, as we'll have to see what happens with this other group. Will they get through here? Will this big pack make it on the pit road? Because they're going to have to come to there very soon. Will they make it in now without having a problem? Will they cause a caution and end this race? No, well, it actually would. I think if we get a caution now, this is over.
Yet 7 minutes left on the clock. Again, typically under a race at a lap format, it comes at 5 laps to go or less. We can do many more than those laps in 7 minutes on the clock, but I don't think if we get a yellow from this point on that this race is going to have an opportunity to restart. Maybe that's what Brown's banking on. He's hoping that a caution flag comes out behind him, but I don't see these drivers being able to make it on fuel. They would have the maximum lap they could get to would be lap number 87. That'll be in 5 laps. Still 6.5 minutes left on the clock. I don't see it happening. And as opposed to the other group, who wanted to come down pit road, get the fuel, and race it out to the end. It almost looks like this group is going to be the guys who gamble it, just stay out onto the racetrack and maybe run it dry. We'll see how long they stay out, continuing to run up front. They do not come down pit road this time. Still Brown and Basilia, Holloway, Servant, and Harrington. 1, 2, 3, 5. As actually the 82 machine does come down pit road. So Dan Harrington abandons that lead group.
He does, and what I'm really looking at back here is Harry Tiller's on his own. He's going to get swallowed up by some of these cars, especially the likes of Jorgensen Jr. back here with Passini, DeMerchant, and also Berger. So Passini drops on pit road on his own. That's going to cost him. But Tiller, look at this, on his own, those two will blast past him. He's really got nothing. He drops to the apron. He's almost given up at this stage as he tries to let everyone get past him. Tiller's cost himself this one with getting out of pit road way too quickly. And that's another thing, you know, when you are getting off pit road into the cars, just because you can get out of pit road quickly doesn't mean necessarily you should go now. I like to make sure I go with the other guys leaving pit road, because that happens if you get out too quickly and you make a gap.
Yeah, one of the few instances in which you could actually be too fast. He beat both of those cars off of pit road, but because Seth DeMerchant and the 88 of Jorgensen left pit road together, they're in the draft. It's a pretty big speed difference of about 6 to 7 miles an hour. Those drivers have been able to get to by him, and they are leading the group of drivers who have pitted. If everybody in front has to pit, and everybody in the field would not be able to make it off of this last restart to the end of this race, it's going to be down to Jorgensen and DeMerchant. But for the time being, they're not quite there yet. They run in 8th and 9th position. The top 7 drivers have still yet to pit. Brandon Cruz Monsivice is 7th, and he's all by himself without drafted help, so we have to look at this group of the top 6 cars. Brown, Basilia actually pulling away a little bit from some of the other names, but Holloway, Servant, Rittenauer, and Flag, who's also fallen back. It's a 5-horse race now up at the front of the field. Still don't know if they can make it to the end. 4 minutes, 10 seconds left on the clock.
Not a lot of time, and well, a caution, as we mentioned earlier, will end it from a couple of minutes ago actually, but we're in that position now. Brown, Basilia, and Holloway, or Brown and Basilia, at least the front 2, they got to pit soon. They've got to. They have
coming
to be
in
so
this
low
time
on fuel. They're coming in. Yeah, so that's them giving up the mantle. And does this put this back onto the likes of well, Daniel Holloway is still out. He might have to come back in as well. Paul Servant right in that second, as well, Jorgensen Jr. and DeMerchant be in a position to take this one. It's going to be tough to see.
They split that pit stop. Travis Brown came down to the pit lane. He's going to come just take a splash of fuel and to get back going. So the first 2 cars in line of that group pitted. The 3 in line behind that didn't. So 3rd, 4th, and 5th become 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Holloway is leading this race, followed by Paul Servant, followed by Ray Rittenauer the second. Then you'll find Seth DeMerchant and Bart Jorgensen Jr., who this race would be determined amongst if these 3 up front have to pit. They are 21 seconds behind. And here they come. Can't make it. Holloway's coming down pit road. Servant is coming down pit road. So is Ray Rittenauer. That means that everybody has had to pit off of the restart. And it's going to be a long way, but the 57 is going to go to the race lead. Watch him out at turn 4.
Yeah, he will, and this is a big one because with him and Mark Jorgensen Jr. fighting, it's going to be to the death for those two. Jorgensen Jr. has a really good chance of winning this one because if it's 1v1, he knows exactly when to jump on Seth coming to the flag.
And the race winners so far this season that have already punched their tickets to the playoffs: Chris Passini, Brandon Monsivice, Brandon Chaburko, and Jason Altmans. We have yet to see Seth DeMerchant or Mark Jorgensen Jr. get a win so far in 2017 on this calendar year. A win for either or of these drivers would put them that little bit extra. And the difference between the two is right now on points, Jorgensen is in the playoffs. He's 10th position on the playoff grid based on points. DeMerchant is below that cut line, and well, it's not that big of a deal now. Still 8 regular season races after this one to go. He's technically in a win or go home scenario, and they're going to come across the start finish line. This time scored once more in 1st and 2nd position. Tell you what, it's been quite some time since we've seen only 2 cars left to race it out. It's hard for the 88 to make a move because he doesn't have anybody to push him around the 57, so he's going to have to make a decision coming out of turn 4 on the last lap to go high or low.
Yeah, that will be a real position here where we have to see who has the chance for this one. Because look at that, Tiller goes down a lap on his own there. That's exactly what it's cost him.
He was in front of those two off of pit road.
Yeah.
That's how important the draft is.
No, it's huge, but I think he's given up. He's really down on speed there. I can't believe he lost a lap already. That's super fast. But he has indeed. And, well, we've got to be moments away now from the white flag. Maybe 2 laps at this stage, and I think Jorgensen Jr. is in the catbird seat right now, sitting in second place.
He can do what he wants with the 57. Some drivers, and this kind of goes back to the old school 2-car tandem. Do you want to be leading? Do you want to be trailing? For the 57 to Seth the Merchant, he's leading. He just needs to keep the 88 behind Tim, but he doesn't really control his own destiny. He's going to have to mirror drive it if both of those drivers get into an accident, if they take each other out. Andrew Berger is the next closest driver in line in third position. That's 10 seconds behind. 24 seconds left on the clock for the drivers up at the front of the field. The 57 of the Merchant, the 88 of Mark Jorgensen Jr. Do we see the white flag fly this time?
We should, but I don't think we'll see it immediately. This will, I think, be the last lap. Because the clock will hit 0, and we'll see who does what. It's looking like
clock strikes 0 right there.
Yes.
White flag, there it is. Final time, down the back straightaway. Traffic in front of your race leaders. Is the 54 to Bonsavice going to be a factor? We're going to go side by side. Jorgensen with an early move to the outside of the racetrack. The 54 is going to get down and out of the way, and we are going to drag race at a quarter number 4. They're fighting for a playoff berth, and they're into each other. Contact, and the 57 to Seth the Merchant will spin, and he is going to hang on and win from Daytona. Jorgensen through the grass, 4/100 shy.
That is, wow. That is an incredible end to that one. And I didn't think we did try and wreck each other, but that was tight. It was a really, really fun fight there to the end. And the Merchant with a win.
And it was hard to call who was winning that thing because, again, they made contact. I thought the move was early from Jorgensen to make it down the back straightaway. And when you choose to go to the outside, you're at a disadvantage. If you go to his inside, he can't push you below. You can force him up. And I think Jorgensen had a good run. If they didn't touch, Mark Jorgensen Jr. would have won this race. But that's the Kyle Larson to Chase Elliott at the shootout of the All-Star race a couple of years ago. When you go to somebody's outside, you're just asking for them to fence you. And those two drivers went up high. The 88 and the 57, they kind of mutually met each other, and then they started spinning. The 88's down in the grass. He did not lift. The Merchant's up on the wall. He did not lift, and both of those drivers come across the start-finish line only within 4/100ths of a second of each other. The 88, practically on pit road, comes up half a car length shy.
Yeah, and that was so close. We've had some fantastic finishes in this series, and that I think is going to be in the list of one of them. It was a fun run for them, and again, I think Jorgensen Jr. thought that lapped car would be a pick. He thought he could box him in and use him to get past, but I didn't think he expected him to get out of the way quite as much, and that really allowed the Merchant to really keep himself ahead in terms of speed. So.
And it mentioned the drivers in third, that if maybe the race leaders would have taken each other out, that third place on the back could have caught up. They did make up some ground. It went from a 10-second disadvantage to a 7.4-second disadvantage, way too far back for the fact that those drivers were still able to get to the start-finish line to catch up. You just got to think, if third place was a little bit closer, if maybe the 57 of the Merchant and Jorgensen both spun out, as opposed to kind of sliding across the start-finish line, that thing could have gotten much more out of hand. Only one of them was going to get that golden ticket, and it belongs to Seth the Merchant. And what I have to say is one of the more crazy finishes we have seen in this series in quite some time, and that's saying something.
Oh yeah, that was a crazy run to the end, and definitely a fantastic one for this. So good end to the race after what was very much a yellow flag race.
And we'll chat with those two names involved in the battle to the end, and we'll have an opportunity to chat with Mr. Seth the Merchant down in Superspeedway Cup Series Victory Lane. The first time we've been able to do that since a little bit earlier on this season, towards the tail end of season number 14. It's career win number 11 for Seth the Merchant in the Superspeedway Cup Series. We'll take this opportunity to step aside, and when we come back to Daytona International Speedway, we'll be down at Victory Lane and chatting it with your race winner tonight. You're watching LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Keep it locked, and we'll be right back. Welcome back live to the Daytona International Speedway, where we will be going trackside in just a minute, chatting with the top finishers here tonight for this fifth race on the Season 15 Superspeedway Cup Series campaign on LSRTV and iRacing Live. We'll do that in just a minute. First, we will look top to bottom at tonight's LSRTV full race results from our first of the three trips to Daytona circa 2007. It's a rough and tough racetrack. This race fit right in line with that MO, and so did the finish, as Seth the Merchant, courtesy of a lot of sheet metal, hangs on over top of Art Jorgensen Jr. by 4/100ths of a second to join the playoff grid. Jorgensen gets a good points night, coming home in second spot. Andrew Berger, series veteran, great result in third. Those are the names we'll be trackside with in just a moment. Behind them, though, continuing on through, huge shout out to Frank Basilia III, jumping on track here tonight in the number 94 machine to make it a return. He gets a fourth place result in this one-off appearance at the McDonald's Ford Fusion. Travis Brown, series rookie, started 19th to come home inside of the top 5 tonight. Pole sitter Rod Flagg comes home in 6th. Ray Rittenauer is home in 7th position, along with Paul Servant in 8th. Dan Harrington is 9th, and Daniel Holloway is in 10th.
11th place tonight will come home is Chris Bassini. Sean McCarrick in the 12th spot with Jimmy Coleman in 13th. Classic car on the lead lap. Nearly close to the top 10. I was suggesting it might be Brandon Cruz Montevice in 14th, with Harry Tiller after that disastrous green flag pit stop is 15th. Scott Warren, Josh Ball, Rimon Evans, Mike Thiel, and Tanner Mann in 20th.
This point on, we're talking about 30 laps down. It's a rare sight to see Brandon Chaburko included in these names, but he gets a D&F tonight, comes home in 21st position. Rodney Wofford is 22nd, with Jared Haggerty, Dwayne Cooper, and Gary Champion through 25th spot. Tom Dreiling is 26th position, 27th for Dana Osborne, Justin Levine 28th, 29th for Scott Fensterbacher, and Andy Kessler in 30th, along with 31st position Mike Schultz and 32nd Larry Camp. So look top to bottom at your LSRTV full race results. So, headed to victory lane for an 11th time at a Superspeedway Cup Series. Your winner tonight from Daytona International Speedway is Seth the Merchant. Seth, congratulations on what was, as I described, a wild, wrecking finish, courtesy of a lot of sheet metal at the end of this thing. But talk us through that last run, this entire race, a lot of carnage, and we find ourselves with what's already a relatively small pack for what ended up being the final restart in this race. Well, it turns out nobody could make it on fuel. So drivers start to trickle down to the pit lane. You guys pitted rather early compared to some groups who stayed out, maybe trying to catch a yellow and stretch their fuel. Next thing you know, we go from a small group of, I think, 7 or so cars in the lead group to 2. Just you and the 88. He was behind you. I bet you guys had a lot of time in those closing 5 laps to think a lot of what ifs. When it came down to it, he chose the high side in turn number 3, and tell us how it went down.
Yeah. Me and Mark started working together there, and it was like 3 or 4 times. We didn't think we had it won. We thought that people were making it on gas, and then Harry came out like 6 seconds ahead of us in pit stops, and I think he got a black flag, had to pit again, and everything just worked out. All the guys that were trying to save kept running out and having to pit, and we just ended up in the lead with like a 10-second gap for like the last 5 laps, and just pretty much he kept trying to get a run on me, trying to figure out what was going to work. And I knew that the top was going to be the strong line, but on the white flag we had Brandon. We were coming up on the lap car, and I felt like the bottom was going to be the faster line if I got behind him and got off his draft, and he was able to get up next to my door and side draft me really hard, and it slowed me way down. And then coming off 4, we made contact and wrecked across the lawn.
Did you have any idea where he was when you guys were coming across the start-finish line? Because all I saw was you. He was basically down by pit road, and we had to wait until the times came up, and I thought that he had probably spun out into the inside fence or wrecked, and he ended up being only 4/100ths of a second. Were you kind of watching the relative there when you were coming across the line? Did you think you'd make it back to the stripe?
Yeah, I thought he won, because on the relative when we crossed the line, it showed him in front of me, but then it popped up at the end that I was in the lead. So I don't know. It was kind of a surprise. Not the way we really wanted to end it there. Me and Mark had been working together for the last like 20, 30 laps, but nice to get a 1-2 there.
I know it's going to be big news for you guys. First win on the season. Your last one wasn't all that too long ago, though, just towards the end of last season. But you get your 11th career win in this Superspeedway Cup Series, which is quite the accomplishment, because that keeps you solidly in 5th all-time, but now just one off of Shane, who holds that 4th all-time with the 12 wins. But I think more importantly, on top of that, this win puts you guys up into the top of the playoff projection. If you guys are able to maintain the top 30 in the points, you could have an opportunity to fight for a championship in this thing. And I know that you're somebody who comes to the racetrack and expects to get race wins, but I understand that even with that being said, this has to be a big weight lifted off your shoulders. Yeah,
this season, especially for me, I've had a pretty rough start the first like 2 or 3 races, and then now I've gotten here pretty good finishes the past 2, and hopefully I can get it up high enough to be in the chase, top 30 in points. I think I can do that pretty easily, but it's been a pretty wrecky season compared to all the other ones that we've had here in the past, so it's definitely a lot different.
Well, you get yourself into the playoffs, which means you could have an opportunity to fight for a 3rd championship in this series. You also get $5 for walking away at the end of the evening with the I-5 bonus. So that never hurt anybody either, Seth. We'll let you get out of here, though, and chat with the guys, the sponsors and shout-outs. You know the routine. Who makes it happen for you?
Just you got to thank P-Money Designs, painting the cars as always, and Rod for putting on the league.
The race winner tonight from Daytona International Speedway, 11th time on the 2-time champion's career, first time in season 15. Seth the Merchant is headed playoff bound. Seth, thanks for sticking around and chatting with us. As always, congratulations on the win. I expect many more to come this season, so hopefully we'll chat soon.
Thank you.
That's the driver who comes home on top. On the flip side of that, the driver that almost crossed the start-finish line from the pit lane. Mark Jorgensen Jr. comes home second, and Andrew Berger comes home third. Rachel Whiteford is trackside with both the drivers of the 88 and the 24, but first she's caught up with the driver who came home in second.
Certainly have, and after he's done picking grass out of his teeth, Mark Jorgensen Jr. there with a fantastic run to the end, channeling Urine and Dale Earnhardt there for a pass through the grass, but just didn't quite make it. So, not starting a new career as a lawnmower technician, are you?
Oh, yeah. I think I probably should have turned a little bit more harder left into Seth, but no, that was... I told Seth, I wasn't trying to wreck him or anything for the win. I know that we was going to be door banging. He thought that he come up. I mean, I told him, I said, I know that I come down on him, but heck, with how much of a lead we have over third place, we were still able to pull it off in second place. But yeah, I gave the old Daytona a little buzz cut. I'll send him my bill in the mail in a couple weeks. But yeah, this race was something else, man. These timed events, I don't know if I like them or whatever. It's kind of hard to determine your pit strategy, and we had a rash of cautions. I mean, caution after caution after caution. I mean, there was one time, we went back green and, we was wrecking before we even got to turn one. So, I mean, it's something else, man. I don't know what the deal is, if it's the timed race, if it's the guys, if it's guys are just that bad or what the situation is. But hopefully we can put this race behind us and continue on having good races. But, yeah, that last little green flag stint we had, that last caution, there was a few guys I'd seen in my mirror that pitted, and I was kind of cringing, thinking that they was going to be good to the finish, and thinking that I screwed up by staying out. But some guys was kind of doing some calculations and saying, hey, there's no way in heck those guys are going to be able to make it. Even if they just coasted around the track, they wasn't going to make it. But so anyways, I started hitting up Seth, messaging each other back and forth, and kind of talking to him about how many gallons he had left, how many I had left, and then he come up with a strategy of how much fuel to take, and we just executed our pit stop perfectly and got back up to speed. And he sent me a message saying we lost. At that time I think we was about 13th and 14th, and I was like, man, this ain't a finish that the 88 team needs. And started cycling out, and I think we made it up to about 4th and 5th, and he come back and over a message and say we won. So here I am. I'm over here trying to focus on making sure I don't wreck Seth, making sure to see how much remaining time we got. I'm trying to hit my relative, to see where everybody's at. And about that time, it's recycled, me and him are first and second with like a 8-second lead. So, I mean, I knew it was going to come down between us. Like I said, I knew we was going to be banging fenders and this, that, and the other. But, man, we was both willing it coming to the checker. That was pretty cool.
So an intense end to the race. Who makes it happen for you guys in the 88 car?
Oh, let's see. Obviously, Rod for putting this on week in and week out. I know he's probably getting aggravated with all of us, in-game chat on Facebook, whatever. But, it's all for good fun. I mean, I honestly have a blast coming over here. I think we got a pretty good group of guys. There's a handful of them that are just really, 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 really good. And that's what makes me want to keep coming back every Friday night to race with them and try to whip their ass and put the 88 in victory lane. But again, just a huge shout out to Rob Flagg, LSRTV for the broadcast, Rachel, you, Evan, Cisco, Macklin. There's a laundry list of y'all guys up there in the booth. I mean, y'all are awesome. I mean, I'm so glad that we have y'all to broadcast our league, and it's so great, finishing, in the top 3 and being able to talk to either of y'all. I mean, y'all are blessed to chit chat with. So congrats to y'all. Big shout out to y'all. Again, Cisco for the paint scheme. I got the iRacing Live, Joe Real Time, Rod Car. I'm probably missing somebody on this car, but man, this damn thing ran pretty damn good. Almost put it in a victory lane. I'm trying like all heck to win with an LSRTV car. I think that'd be pretty cool. And man, back-to-back second place finishes just ain't gonna get it done. But other than that, man, I don't know who to thank. A shout out to my cousin Michael Grabham, his son Paxton. I'm sure they was watching. Guys, I come up just a little bit short. Man, I was wheeling, sliding sideways, grass flying everywhere. I really thought I had it. But other than that, just a huge shout out to Seth. I mean, he done a good job. I mean, he's a heck of a wheel man, and he won this race. I mean, so congrats to him.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Martin Jorgensen Jr., the 88 car coming home today in second place. Well, next up, we've got Andrew Berger. Just to have a quick chat to Andrew. Surprising result for you to come home third there in the 7 seconds back from the leaders, but good points for you as we go forwards in this season and building up a good stock of points looking towards entering in the chase.
Yeah, definitely. It was a solid another 2 top 5 finishes in a row here for the 24 team. I'll certainly take it. Night started off good, almost had the pole there in the top 5 start, so that's always a good start here, especially at this bumpy Daytona old school track. Started off fine, but then got caught up in some other people's mistakes and fell back and kind of rode around the back for most of the race. And then there at the end, we had some kind of a pit strategy and was hoping to make it there on fuel, but we would come up a bit short, so we decided to pit with Mark and Seth and those guys since they were out front. But unfortunately, the 24 team had a little issue on there on pit road. You may have seen that spinning out of the pits a little bit. So unfortunately, we couldn't keep up with them. They certainly, both Seth and Mark, outclassed the field on the pit road. So I gotta take my hat off to them. They earned their first and second finishes tonight. That's for sure.
Yeah, they certainly did. And who makes it work for you guys on the 24 car?
I'd just like to thank Rod Flagg, as always, for all the work he does and time and hard work and money and he puts in this league. And I know Mark echoed the same thoughts that I had about, and I know he's having a rough run here and some of the guys are giving him some slack, but just say to him, just keep it up, man. A lot of us guys here appreciate all he does, and just shout out to him. And of course, you guys here at LSRTV for all that you do and the great job of broadcasting. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining us. Andrew Berger, 24 car coming home in the third place. Evan?
That's a chat with your top finishers. And what does, when we come into the night and we come into Daytona 07, we always know it's going to be a wild night. Wild can take on many different definitions. This race, yes, had more caution flyings than we would have liked to see and then what the drivers would have liked to see. We'll be frank about that one. But at the end of the day, we get a final restart, and this was kind of perfectly explain the challenges that the drivers have to deal with on fuel and having to calculate fuel based on a timer instead of a lap counter. I thought, like Jorgensen and Seth the Merchant did at the time, that the drivers who pitted at that last pit stop would have been able to make it. I thought that when those guys came down pit road, that's it. They were done. I thought Harry Tiller was going to win this race because he was one of the only guys who decided to come down to the pit lane that was in that lead group. Everybody else was multiple seconds back. And next thing you know, everybody's down pit road. Tiller beats them off at the pit lane. DeMerchant, Jorgensen come out in front. And it wasn't quite a door-banging side-by-side photo finish to the line, but it was a photo finish of a different kind as we had both our race leaders wreck, slide across the start finish line, and still come home within less than 5/100ths of a second. So at the end of the day, the finish was worth the result.
Yes, it was. And, well, thankfully, another good race. And next week, where are we off to, Evan?
We'll head back to Talladega, but it is not going to be under this format. We're going to have one of our premier races. The Superspeedway 500 is one of them. At the end of the regular season, we'll have the Stars Fell in Alabama 250, which comes up next week from the Talladega Superspeedway. No stage racing, no timer. It is going to be 94 laps start to finish in that one, so we're kind of going old school in 1 week's time.
Awesome. I cannot wait.
And tonight continues the trend in which we had into tonight as well, in which we have now had different stage winners at all of our stage races so far to this point. Stage winners still yet to park it in victory lane this season. 5 different races, 5 different winners, and 5 names to the top of the playoff picture. All of that being said, though, that wraps it up for here and us at LSRTV from the Daytona International Speedway tonight. It also wraps up our coverage this calendar week on iRacing Live. If you want to keep up to date with us and to make sure that you can find us on the air before next Friday evening, when the Superspeedway Cup Series returns, best way to do that is to go to our website at www.livesimracing.com, and you can take a look at a full extended broadcast schedule there. But also make sure you keep up to date with us on social media. Twitter on @LSRTV, at Facebook at facebook.com/LSRTV official. That's the best way to get notifications on when we're online, and also to keep up to date with all the leagues that we've got going on throughout the week. We've got a lot going on next week. Of course, RSR Full Throttle Cup. Cup Series in action, the Championship Esports Association's Myrtle Beach Simulation Series, and of course, the Superspeedway Cup Series returns next Friday evening from Talladega Superspeedway. That race and every race can be found right here on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. So on behalf of the entire team at Live Sim Racing LLC, that includes not just up top here tonight for Evan Pasoko, Rachel White, Francisco Scaramouza, but also everybody behind the scenes, DJ Lyon, Laura Lawson, everybody else who comes up here topside week in and week out, night in and night out as well, and making things possible. On behalf of the entire team, congratulations to Seth the Virgin. He's going playoff racing in a couple of months' time. We'll see you next Friday evening from Lincoln, Alabama, and the Stars Fell on Alabama 250. Until then, good night.